sir.
Good morning. I'm going to call the Board of Supervisors meeting for April 18th to order. Roll call.
Supervisor Foy. Supervisor Long.
Here.
Supervisor Bennett.
Here.
Supervisor Parks.
Here.
Supervisor Zaragoza.
Here. Please join me in saluting the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Our next item is the minutes of April 11th. What's the pleasure of the board? Oops. We need a second on that. No second required? Okay.
I hit the button once.
Okay, so we're okay, Ryan? Okay. Okay, agenda review, Michael.
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza. Two items. Item 24, Public Works Agency. Adoption of a resolution authorizing the execution of a joint exercise of powers agreement creating the Fillmore and Piru Basins Groundwater Sustainability Agency. A comment letter from Kieran Moss has been submitted. Item 33, Supervisor Parks. Second public hearing regarding adoption of an ordinance regarding campaign finance. We request to continue that item to April 25th, 2017. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Our next item in the agenda is the moment of inspiration. We have...
We have to make a motion.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to hurry up.
Move the agenda as revised.
I did have a question on that.
Okay.
And that's in regards to the JPA. I wanted to make sure, I know we've had discussions before of having a full board here when we have these types of discussions, especially because water is such a big deal. So I wanted to ask the board if you wanted to review that item next week since Foy is not here, or if we needed to move. I just wanted to make sure we had that discussion.
That's item 24.
24.
What would you like?
I would love us to be done and everyone agree and have the contract signed and let's go. That's what I'd like, just being honest. But that was one of my concerns because we have had a lot of discussions on items and he is not here. And I know there's others that are coming on, so that's why I wanted to make sure we brought that up.
If I could just add to the discussion here, I know there are a number of people coming to speak at 9:30 today, and I think what staff has presented is something that's consistent with the board direction, and so it seems like there's a reasonable chance we can be done today, and if as we hear the item, we are not done, we're not done. But I think with people coming, some of them from long distances, it wouldn't be appropriate for us to not hear this item at 9:30.
And that's valid. So I appreciate that.
We'll go ahead and hear
But
it.
yes, and we will have good discussion on that item.
Okay, all righty. Anything else? Okay, so what's the pleasure of the board here? Other than that, we're okay? Thank you. Okay, that's approved. And now we have the moment of inspiration. We have the Lori Sanchez and also Elsa Davies and the Garden of Innocence by the Sea. Welcome. Do you have a PowerPoint then?
Good morning, Chairman Zaragoza, fellow board
Good morning.
members, CEO Howard. My name is Renee Higgins. I work for the healthcare agency. I am the associate administrator for specialty care for ambulatory care. But I also have the pleasure and honor of providing administrative support for the medical examiner department. My heart broke on my first day working there. I came across a brochure on the Garden of Innocence. And this service provides dignified burials for abandoned babies and children. This garden is at Ivy Lawn in Ventura. So far, there's been about, since April of 2015 or so, 12 babies and children that have been buried there. 2 more are slated for next month. But I wanted to introduce to you Lori Sanchez, and Elisa Davies couldn't be here today. We have Marcia Anderson. She is the media coordinator, and I'd like them to come up and take us through some of these pictures. And I just wanted to raise awareness for what they're doing. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
Good morning. It's an honor to be here.
Good morning.
My name is Marcia Anderson.
I'm Lori Sanchez, the director of the Garden of Innocence. Okay, thank you, Board of Supervisors, for honoring us for this moment of inspiration. The garden provides burials for unidentified and abandoned babies, children. We are located in Ivy Lawn Memorial Park, and thanks to their board, they gave us the land there. We currently have 13 babies buried there. 2 more babies will join the rest of them in May. May 13th is what we're looking to have the next service. When I tell people what I do, their response is usually shock and then tears. Why is this happening? I don't know, but I'm sure glad we have these gardens to give them the love and dignified burials they deserve. I tell them about the Knights of Columbus who have pledged to be at each service, dressed in their regalia and ushering the babies into their final resting place. Our bagpipers and dove persons have also joined our following, along with several volunteers, of which we need more. The Ventura County Medical Examiner's Office has worked with us closely to identify these babies. One recent case was a fetus was discovered doing inventory check at Moore Park College Biology Department. The little girl was found perfectly preserved in a bottle, and the college had no inventory tag number for her. This became a crime scene which took several months to investigate. Ms. Renee Higgins from the Medical Examiner's Office contacted me to inform me about the baby and to see if we would care for her after the investigation was closed. I think you know the answer. Oh, she asked me if we would take care of the baby after the investigation was closed. I think you guys know the answer. We buried her along with 6 other babies in September 2016. There are many other stories to tell, but that would take all day. So I encourage you to go to our website, which is www.goinational, and read about the Garden of Innocence and our founder, Elisa Davy. She is an awesome person. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
I
Marcia?
want to encourage anybody in the community that can attend the May 13th service at Ivy Lawn. It's at 10 o'clock in the morning. You might think that they're depressing or sad, but they're the most inspirational occasions you can imagine. And I've not had anybody that's come to one of these services that doesn't say that they want to come back every time. They ask me continuously, when's the next service? When's the next service? And I know these services do provide a very therapeutic setting for a lot of people that have lost children. And so we get that feedback about that. And I met Elisa Davies. I'm a deputy public administrator in the Decedents Estates Department for the County of Ventura. And I've had the occasion since I started working there in June of 2010 that many babies were abandoned. Various mortuaries. We had one that we buried initially that she had died in 1992, and she was in the catacombs of this mortuary in Santa Barbara. So there are lots of abandoned babies out there. We just have to find them and see if we can give them a final resting place. So I met Elisa Davies and Lori right around the summer of 2014 and instantly was taken with the whole thing because as a deputy public administrator, it just seemed so wrong to me that these babies, were on this earth and then buried in a pauper's field. Basically is what a local mortuary would cremate them, and they would just bury them in a pauper's field. So it's very inspirational to me that they have a name, they get a name, they have a blanket, handmade. People all over the country make these little handmade blankets. Each baby gets a beanie baby with them. And we have woodworkers all over America that make these handmade wooden urns, Boy Scouts and woodworkers. And there's a very inspirational YouTube video that has inspired so many woodworkers to make these. In fact, Alyssa Davey, she lives in Vista. And after this YouTube video went viral, basically, she would come home and there would be like 100 urns on her porch. And the letter carrier said he was feeling discouraged in his life at that time. And when he found out what it was, he just was so taken that he was a part of this, be able to help these babies find a better way on their journey home, basically. So it's an honor and a privilege to be associated with everyone that works for the Garden of Innocence. Let me think of what else we want to say.
That if you have time, read up on us on the web, and you'll find our gardens very inspirational to children, adults. We've had pastors there that have led the service and had stopped various times to gain their composure. So it is it's very near and dear to my heart. And I hope that it'll be near and dear to your heart, too.
Thank you, Laurie
Thank you.
and Marcia.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Mr.
you,
Chair.
and Renee.
Ladies, I just want to say, you made us all a little bit more civilized today. And so thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett.
I really appreciate it.
And thank you to Renee, and thank Ivy Lawn, for caring and taking care of those children that were abandoned and so forth. And I really appreciate it. And thank all the folks that participate in making their urn and helping out. Thank you so much for
Yes,
for
we're
sharing.
very
this.
grateful to get the community support.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we have consent items 11 to 23. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd like to call that item 23 just for a quick comment.
You want to do that
approve
before?
each of
Okay.
them. Yeah, and that is just that's the Friends of the Library donating $23,000. And that's no small thing for just a group of volunteers to do, to raise with their book sale, et cetera. And so I just want to make sure that we publicly acknowledge that Friends of the Library contribution. Thank you.
Supervisor Parks?
Yeah, and I wanted to call out item 13. This is something the federal government is providing $276,000 to allow for rental assistance to help people into permanent housing. And it's nice to see with our emphasis on that there's funds going along with it too.
Okay. Okay, so got a motion, and we need a second. Got a second? Please vote. And that's approved. Our next item is public comments, not on the agenda, and we have three individuals that like to speak. We have David Deutsch, and then Greg Hall, followed by Jill Martinez. Three speakers. David, Greg, and Jill.
Good morning,
Good
Chairman
morning.
Zaragoza, CEO Powers, Supervisor Long, Supervisor Parks, Supervisor Bennett, and county staff. We are grateful to be here this morning. I'm the director of the National Alliance on Mental Illness in Ventura County. We are the largest organization in the United States that advocates for people who are impacted by mental illness, both the person themselves who has the diagnosis, as well as family members and friends. In Ventura County, our affiliate has served over 3,500 people in the year of 2016. We expect to serve over 4,000 people in the year of 2017. All of our services, programs, and classes are offered at no charge to anybody at any time all over the county. And the reason we're able to do this is because our annual fundraiser is our NAMI Walk, which takes place this year on Saturday, May 6th at the Ventura Beach Promenade, beginning at 10 in the morning. That event raises about 50% of our annual revenue and is what makes it possible to offer all of our services. It also seeks to raise awareness in our county about mental illness and the prevalence of it, because 1 in 4 adults in the United States is impacted by mental illness. In addition to that, it's a fun event. It's a great time to come out. We have 1,500 people last year. We have face painting for children. We have people bring their dogs dressed up. A lot of people connect and reconnect at the walk. We have resource tables, 28 to 32 resource tables provided by people throughout the county that are either direct providers of services or provide important services that serve our community. So we would like to invite everybody to come out and have a great time at the event and help raise funds as much as possible. We have walk teams already formed. You can still form a walk team, and we have sponsorships available. Can be contacted at namiventura.org. If you go to the website, you can get all of our other contact information. And at this time, I'm proud to introduce our honorary walk chair, City Councilman from Santa Paula, Martin Hernandez.
Martin, welcome, Martin. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, Mr. Powers, county staff. I'm honored to be before you here this morning on behalf of NAMI, not only in my role as a city council member for what I'm biased, of course, the most beautiful city in the county, Santa Paula, but also am humbled and honored to have been asked and agreed wholeheartedly to be the honorary chair for the walk this year. As David said, 1 in 4 adults are affected by mental illness in the country. And I have been personally affected by that in my family. And in my previous career of working for the Behavioral Health Department in the mid to late 90s, I had the opportunity to work with this population and ran an intensive outpatient program for those folks who were duly diagnosed, having a mental illness diagnosis as well as a substance use dependence disorder. And, the one thing that struck me about working with them at that time and now, and have been recently diagnosed with diabetes myself, it's much like any other disease, right? That it's not something that anybody's born in as they're a child growing up thinking, you know what, I can't wait till I develop mental illness, right? So they're afflicted and they're victims. And the thing that I really admire about NAMI is that they are there and all their services are free. And the one thing I know, particularly with the Latino community, is that they feel so isolated and there's so much stigma associated with that rarely do they ever seek help.
That's right.
And support.
And that's important too.
And support, right, for the family members, not just the care for the identified patient, but for the family members as well. So I'm really glad that NAMI does a wonderful job at outreach into those communities. They're doing a great job currently at trying to outreach and penetrate that Latino community out in the Santa Clara River Valley, as well as any other particular identified patient and their families to offer the support. So I'm also a proud member of the county family for over 18 years, and it's that reason that I agreed to come here specifically. And we've already been touched, and thank you for those comments, right. Supervisor Bennett, about what this Garden of Innocence provides for those unfortunately seemingly unwanted babies. I'm glad someone's still caring for them. But I'm here because it's opened your hearts now to ask you to keep those hearts open. And all my friends in all the departments throughout the county that I've had the opportunity to work with over the years, and ask them to please consider creating a team to join the NAMI Walk. This is a major fundraiser for them. They really depend on these dollars. And if you can't find the opportunity to create a team, they'll accept your money as well. So if you just feel like assisting them in that way, David, remind them one more time how they can make those donations, and thank you for your time.
And also the date again, and is it free to go over?
Absolutely.
Okay, David, you want to give us that?
Yes, please.
If you go to our website at namiventura.org, it has all the information, contact information, and how to donate to the walk.
Okay, thank you. And Supervisor Parks.
I wanted to congratulate Martine on great selection from NAMI to have you be the chair of the walk this year. And it is a real effort of our Behavioral Health Department, NAMI and all, to do a better outreach with Latinos. So I think that's a great choice too. But also your experience has led us really well so far, so I know that it will continue. And if anyone needs a team, the Mighty Oaks has a team going, a team that we've put together here, and it is a wonderful day. It's a lot of fun. And it's great to see so many people coming out to support people with mental illness, but more importantly, really, is the families, too, which NAMI does outreach to. And when you find a loved one with mental illness, sometimes you just don't know what to do, and trying to navigate the system, as they say, can be difficult. But to be able to share with others who have experienced that just means so much for those families, and great training opportunities, too, even for people with mental illness, so that they can help others. So it's just a wonderful organization.
Thank you so much for those comments. I want to personally and publicly thank you during your tenure for all the advocacy you do for those who are afflicted with mental illness. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks.
Supervisor Long and then Bennett.
Oh, I was just going to say, great choice. Wonderful person.
Thank you.
And thank you for focusing on our Latinos. It's really important that we are doing that. And I know that it'll be a very successful event and that the county supports you. So thank you very much.
So David and Martin, have you advertised it in Oxnard also? I know that.
Yes, it is. And we do offer our classes, we do offer our family-to-family classes in Spanish as Familia a Familia,
Fantastic.
and we have a Spanish support group
Beautiful.
offered in Oxnard as well. So we
Thank
try
you.
to do the best outreach we can to the Spanish-speaking community in addition to the Latino community.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Martin.
You're welcome.
All
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Greg Hall, followed by Jill Martinez.
Hi, my name is
Good morning.
Craig Hull, and I live in the city of Ventura. I am president of the Ventura Manufactured Home Residents Council, and I'm also on the board of the Golden State Mobile Home Owners League, which is a state organization for mobile home residents. I'm here only to say that we're here to support the park in Ojai that's going through a rental increase problem. And I wanted to thank every member of this Board of Supervisors for supporting their rent stabilization ordinance. It's a very firm and good ordinance, and I think that the residents up in Ojai will be well taken care of. My organization, GSMOL, the state organization, is helping in that, and we hope that they win in the long run. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Okay, Jill Martinez.
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza and supervisors and staff.
Good morning.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak this morning. Supervisor Zaragoza, I wanted to say how happy I am to see you there. I was a former resident of Oxnard, and it's great to see you.
Thank you.
Right now, I'm a resident of Buenaventura Mobile Home Park off of Darling Road, and we have some real issues, but I wanted to let you know that we are all aware that so many of us come before you and complain and stampede and, you know, this is horrible and that's horrible. Well, today we are here to just say thank you. We appreciate what you're doing for mobile home parks in the county, and particularly recognize Steve Offerman, who is Steve Bennett's staff, who is really staying on top of this stuff. And I wanted to turn around and say, those representing mobile home parks, would you please stand? So that you would know that maybe we're few in number this morning, but we represent thousands of votes, and we get out to vote, and we stay on top of stuff. So when whenever you need any support or action, please make sure we know, and we'll be here to support you. It takes a lot of time and courage for you to do what you're doing, so thank you. All of you have received this
Yes.
notice that we are letting you know, and this flyer went out to Lemonwood Park, and also tomorrow Steve Offerman and Steve Bennett will be speaking at the Ventura Residents Council. We are not quite so happy with the city of Ventura. Unfortunately, their rent review board had not met for 13 years, long time we thought it was 10 years, 13 years. Took a long time for us to get that running again with support of your people in your offices. So it's been really, really difficult, and we want to encourage you in any way that you can to coordinate efforts with the city, and we'll try to get the city to see what you're doing so that they can modify or copy what you're doing here, which is really helping seniors in particular, low-income people who will soon be homeless. And you don't want all of us out in the streets, in our 60s, 70s, and 80s pushing carts. We want to maintain the affordable housing that we have, and for mobile home parks to be recognized as affordable places to live. And we need help, but we thank you right now. So we got to thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. That's good to hear, Jill. It's good to see you. I haven't seen you for a long, long time, and I know in Oxnard we work with Carl Lawson and mobile home parks, and that's important. Thank you for sharing, and all of the people that are here today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Chair Zaragoza?
Yes, ma'am.
I know that at one point the state of California did not recognize mobile home parks as affordable housing units, and I think that's something, I don't know if that still remains the same, but as a county we should be pushing the state to recognize that as they encourage it.
Yeah, we are working on that in the legislation. So.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Well, I think the board supports you on that one.
Supervisor Long?
No, I have
No?
no comment.
Okay, I see. Okay, well, thank you so much. That's the end of the public comments.
I'd just like to,
Supervisor.
as was said, it's a lot of hard work. I just want to thank all the people that take the time to represent their mobile home parks. I mean, there are a lot of people in your parks that have difficulty in terms of mobility, et cetera, and you're the people that get to the meetings, you get things done, and you're protecting all those people. And I sure hope we are able to do something about 70% rent increase that they're proposing
That's
up
right.
there in Ohio. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next item is board comments. We have Supervisor Parks.
Thank you. I just wanted to note that we're celebrating Earth Day today with, I know, a little bit later on in our agenda. But I wanted to report because our county has had some controversy regarding the use of Roundup in our waterways and on landscaping, that
Parks.
local activists in Malibu succeeded in convincing the National Park Service to no longer use the herbicides in the Malibu area. And I think that is based on the fact that recently the California Environmental Protection Agency has found that it's a potential carcinogen. So I think that's a really important for us to realize when our county looks at contracting for use of these Roundup and others herbicides. So thank you.
Okay, Supervisor.
Also, if I may, I also would like to ask that the board close in honor of the people on this list, and including, I would like to call out James Edward Travers. He was 84 years old. He was a technical writer in the aerospace industry, an avid photographer, and he leaves behind his beloved wife, Margaret Travers, who's the executive director of our Ventura County Arts Council. And I know he will very much be missed, and I give our heart out to Ms. Travers in this time of difficulty for her, and give her our best.
Supervisor Bennett.
Yes, and Brian, would you hook me up so I can do my PowerPoint here? And while he's doing that, I'm happy to report that we do not have any adjourned memories this week. I think it's the first time in my 16 years that I've been on the board that being the case and stuff. But I do want to point out, and I have up here, last week was a difficult week for this board. I think as we had a difficult topic that we moved forward on. And my commissioner was removed from the commission, and I hoped that it would end there. And certainly with the comments about it being nothing about Mr. Smith except his previous service, but certainly nothing about him. But I'm not going to sit silent while his reputation continues to be maligned even after the hearing. At the hearing, Mr. Smith testified that he opposed the Amundsen Ranch project at the pre-screening. I think he made that very clear at the pre-screening. So that's when he had an opportunity, without being tied by board direction, to express what he thought about the project. And it's unfair to Mr. Smith to still raise the Amundsen Ranch issue. It has been raised, and it's unfair to send out a 15-year-old article and not include Mr. Smith's statement regarding his opposition during the pre-screening hearing. And I think everybody knows who is doing that, and I know how this can erode support for Mr. Smith, but it also undercuts the argument made by this board majority last week when they removed Mr. Smith, that the removal was only about Mr. Smith's roles and not his action. So that attempt is to discredit Mr. Smith is unfair and should stop, and I just want to just clearly get that said, because I do think it undercuts the statements of the supervisors who said this wasn't about an attack on Mr. Smith. So thank you very much. That's my board comments.
Supervisor Long?
I would just comment, I had a nice coffee yesterday with Mr. Smith, and he holds no animosity, which I thought was really nice.
Thank you. Supervisor Long?
He understood the purpose of it.
We are successfully moving into our new office. Mr. Powers was there. We have quite a few of the GSA and IT in support. Wanted to thank everyone again for the support and welcoming us into Camarillo. It's really important that we are within our constituents. We also have our office hours. I just keep poking it so that people start showing up. Is our office hours in Santa Paula and Fillmore, also at Port Hueneme. Thank you to the city council members and our Chamber of Commerce at Port Hueneme for supporting our efforts. It's important that we are reaching out to our constituents and making sure that we are listening to them. So I just wanted to thank everyone who's making it so successful. I was able to attend a branding barbecue. Agriculture is still strong. Our cattle is growing well. When I was there, it was over 53 new little calves. And it's amazing to go from that to a soccer game and understand such the diversity in our area as we're driving 3 hours off a main road in dirt, crossing streams. And it's just, our Ventura County is just beautiful. And the people, 7 generations. The Frost family has been doing cattle for 7 generations. And I already met the grandson that I wasn't counting. So it was very, very powerful that our economy is still thriving. And we want to make sure that we talk about it, that we need to keep our companies here. I know with Amgen, they just, in our agenda, we were talking about the 500 jobs lost. And we talk about the regulations and so forth for our farms and farms closing. And I want to make sure that we are talking about economy and driving our jobs. The startup is this weekend at Rancho Campana, which will be another successful competition, healthy competition to drive economy and new startup businesses, which will employ a lot of people if they're successful. So thank you, Mr. Powers, for being part of that. And then also, I did go to the things you end up going to. Senator of Interior, Ryan Zinke, I went to his speech yesterday, and I wanted to see what was going on in regards to our energy, in regards to plans for our parks, and he spoke a lot about water and wanted to make sure that he knew for Ventura County that we think water is really important and that we need to make sure that we have a diverse portfolio and that we have support. So if it's in storage and so forth. So just trying to understand, even when we hear budget cuts, what is important. And so I took that opportunity to understand and make sure we represent Ventura County. He's also here for the Channel Islands and to understand what's going on there, and he's stated how much the infrastructure is needed. And Santa Rosa, he was getting a tour today. So I appreciated his working with the governor and with our local parks to make sure that they are maintained and kept open for the public. So his mentor was not to have our park rangers in the SWAT gear and the black, and all the guns. But remember the day when it was happy, when Park Ranger was smiling and welcoming everybody, and bathrooms were clean and things were taken care of, was the focus. And so it'll be interesting to hear how he devises, based on budget, because we all have to talk budget, how we can do that and how we can keep our parks open with the demands of the people. And they were talking about busing and certain ways to make sure that people have access to things and still be able to be within budget. So just wanted to let people know that we're out there. Even though we're just one little part of this whole big country, we're still very much, there's so many of our county offices that are into speaking with so many different people to make sure Ventura County is not forgotten and that we take care of our community. So in the end, I'd just like to adjourn in memory of Jack Ellis, born in Port Hueneme, raised in Ventura. He worked at General Telephone. He was excellent. He's retired after 32 years. Very, very outgoing in Camarillo and so forth. And I just want to, I'm very happy to adjourn only in one today.
Yeah. Thank you, Supervisor. I'd like to share that I attended, the Sailor of the Year award over at the Elks Club in Oxnard. It's sponsored by the Navy League of Channel Islands, and this young lady did a lot of good, for the Navy. Her name was Laura Godinez, and they had a nice luncheon, for her at the Elks Lodge in Oxnard. I also attended the Oxnard Earth Day event in Oxnard. I want to thank Trish and Barbara and Julio that were here last week. Remember, we had some difficulty showing her little video, but they did an excellent job in Oxnard. There was many, many families and children learning new things and enjoying the environment, and the whole thing was to save our earth, which is, I think, is extremely important for all of us. Also, I'd just like to remind you, today is the last day to file your income taxes. If you have not filed your income taxes, you can still file that extension 4868. You can do it automatically. So, and that's all I have. And I'd like to adjourn in memory of the folks on this list. I only had 2 in my list. Thank you so much. Mr. CEO.
Thank you, Chair Zaragoza. Just a few items. Presented a couple of State of the County presentations at Rotaries, both in Ventura and Camarillo. Just trying to share with the community what the county, the services the county provides and how we can better integrate with the public and private community in our county. Also attended the Ventura County Ag Summit, the STEM of Farming's Future. And this is something that Henry Gonzalez, our Ag Commissioner, really led. And boy, did they have a great turnout. I mean, there was over 300, maybe 400 people there really focusing how we can utilize science, engineering, and technology into better practices, more efficient practices in farming and water management. And so I'm not sure they'd done it before, but it was really a great event, and hats off to the Ag Commissioner. That ties in well with as Supervisor Long says, the Startup Weekend that's coming up, because that focuses on IT, Ag, and healthcare. So some good synergies coming together there. Also attended the Taxpayers Association luncheon and the MyCop Taste of Oaxaca. And this was the purpose of this is to raise funds for scholarships. And just very inspiring to hear 4 of these students speak about their college experience, now going on to grad school, and just where they've come from and where they're going. It really gives you a lot of hope for the future. We also sampled chapulines, which turns out to be grasshoppers. So that was a little unusual.
Were they good?
Yeah, it didn't taste like chicken. But it was better than you think. It was better than it sounds. It was very good, actually.
Dipped in chocolate or something?
No, that would have been good, no. But a good flavoring, to be sure.
Chapulines.
Yeah, that's right. Also attended Chief Norm Plott's retirement luncheon, really a beautiful luncheon. Attended and made remarks at Cost Pacifica's groundbreaking, along with Supervisor Long. Really a beautiful ceremony there. Exciting to see that get kicked off. Worked with a good group of our county folks for the Ventura County Leadership Academy. It was Health and Social Services Day, so a lot of people helped with that. Johnson Gill, Dina Olivas, Pete Kringle, Judy Weber, Tara Kruth, Elaine Crandall, and Dr. Shipper. And just another great opportunity to talk about what the county is doing in the community and how it is working with the public and private sector, and more opportunities for coordinating services. May 4th is, we added a 4th on our economic vitality program. We added a 4th summit because we heard some feedback. We'd like to talk about affordable housing. So that's coming up May 4th from 8 to 10:30 at the Courtyard by Marriott in Oxnard. And corporate games. So we had a 5K last week. And the county, that's right. I heard a woohoo out there. Oh, that was you. Good job.
Lori won.
Lori just dominated the field. We had about 600 runners in total, and just so you know, 350 from the county. 350 from the county, and it was a great team building effort. Just great to spend some time with your fellow county mates, but also with other employers in the community. And really want to thank Salita Dabrowski and Public Health and Rigo Vargas for rallying the troops to make all that happen. It's a ton of logistical work to make it happen, so your county family thanks you. And lastly, I would just say happy birthday to my wife, Erin, and I hope you enjoyed the birthday muffin the boys and I made for you this morning. Thank you.
Making some points here. We have one regular item here, but before I could...
Took it to environmental health to be checked out first, right? Before she
Lab
ate it,
tested first,
yeah.
right? Smart woman.
We have one individual that I'm not sure if it's late to card, but Kay Bolton for public comment. You still want to share some information? Kay? That was under public comments.
Thank you so much for allowing us to speak. We thought we were on the agenda this morning, but I'm not sure what happened, so I'm sure it's on our side. It's Fair Housing Month. Bonnie Getz is going to give an introduction, and then I'll do a follow-up.
Okay.
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza and supervisors. My name is Bonnie Getz, and my husband Mark and I moved here in 2001. We are here this morning representing the Local Government Relations Board for the Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors. We're also here this morning on behalf of April as Fair Housing Month and all that it represents. I'm happy to report that the National Association of Realtors and the Realtors nationwide, there are important regulations that help assure fair housing is provided and promoted in all of our communities. The Fair Housing Act regulates equal access for housing for buyers and for sellers. For the realtor, this includes providing equal professional services without regard to race, color, religion, gender, disability, family status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity of any prospective client, customer, or any residents of any community. For the client, this means equal professional representation in the acquisition of a home, and the first step is achieving the American dream, which is alive and well in Ventura. And now I'd like to introduce Kay Wilson.
Thank you, Bonnie. Before I give a final comment, Supervisor Bennett, I always appreciate how you do a circle back to something to say thank you to someone. I was able to officiate at the Garden of Innocence in September, and it's truly life-changing. And if you've never given a thought about what happens to a baby who's discarded, it's a good time to do that. So just thanks for being so thoughtful always. Okay.
You're welcome, but if I can just say, it's really been nice to see how transformative this whole effort on your part has been.
Mm-hmm.
And the journey you've been on for the last 15 years has been really inspiring for all the rest of us, so thank you.
Well, you're kind. Thank you. An element of fair housing that's extremely important is the protection of real estate interests from real estate fraud. You are our great partners back in 2006 when you agreed to help establish the fund that would help identify crooks in the business and people who wanted to take housing and their equity in housing away from them. So thank you for that. And we are really aggressive with the district attorney's office in finding people who would damage others and prosecuting them. Many have actually gone to prison as the result of your initial support for this program. So we thank you. We have an updated 90-second video that we would like to show. I think they're queued up and ready to go. Okay. And when the video is ended, that will conclude our comments, and we'll just end unless you have a question.
Yeah, thank you, Kay.
Are as diverse as its victims and its perpetrators. They follow market trends and are often disguised as help. Fraudulent practices are found in every culture at all economic levels, and anyone can be victimized. There has been so much fraud in Ventura County that the district attorney formed a special unit to receive complaints and investigate them. As a result, many predators have been arrested, prosecuted, and are serving prison terms. You can help identify these schemes and report them. One example is as simple as someone forging the signatures of elderly homeowners who have no heirs. Other examples are the interception of tax bills and creating artificial documents granting ownership to a nonprofit organization, taking upfront fees to help someone short sell their home, or convincing a homeowner to grant title to the property to a party who promises them profit after a period of time or promises to sell the home back to them. If the scheme sounds too good to be true, it likely is, and deserves to be examined. The Ventura County Coastal Association of Realtors and other real estate-related professionals have partnered with the District Attorney's Office to prevent fraudulent schemes, detect them when they occur, and report them for investigation. No one is exempt. Many schemes are hard to imagine, and many schemes have yet to be invented. If you suspect real estate fraud, call 805-751-5899 or visit www.refat.org. This is the kind of help you can trust.
Thank you, Kay. And I know NARAB worked pretty hard on that, and also the DA's office, so. Oh, we haven't.
Just a reminder of fair housing elements, and we thank you so much for listening this morning.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. We have one regular agenda item, item 34, and that is the awards of 2 general job order contracts. Who's that? Is that CO's office?
Morning, members of the board, Supervisor Zaragoza and Mike Powers. The request today is to award 2 JOC contracts to MTM Construction. These are used to accomplish our projects which are greater than $175,000. We've included one of the attachments has a list of the projects that are on budget, both for GSA and for our various other clients. Other than that, I'm open to questions.
Okay, any questions of the board? What's the pleasure of the board?
I did have one. You have these projects that are listed here, Todd Road Jail, the pretrial detention facility, et cetera. Those are all projects that are in construction right now, or that are funded to be in construction, or funding to be in construction?
Yeah, these are not in construction at this time. They're the budgeted projects looking forward for at least a year, and actually I've gotten almost into a 2-year look-ahead budget. The last award we did of these 3 of these job contracts lasted close to 2 years for, in fact, exercising them. So I did look ahead pretty far.
So how far out would you say that we're looking with these projects? How far out would you anticipate with our
I think that these 2 projects, which would total about $9 million plus, probably within 12 months we will go through that. We've got some large projects like the remodeling downstairs in Lower Plaza, plus there'll be others now going into the end of the fiscal year. We do have to re-advertise these JOCs, and we're looking at doing that this fall to have them ready somewhere around the end of the calendar year. And it really depends on the workload as to how fast they go. These were a great advertisement pricing back at the point they were done, and the contractor had agreed to honor his bidding from it was really 2015, and really works out very well.
I appreciate, and we've talked about this, I know, in terms of just the whole issue of deferred maintenance, and it's one of those things that's easy for us to miss, and so that's why you can really see that, coming forward here, replacing things before they cost us more money. It's not the stuff that you get a lot of credit for, but it's the stuff that holds the government together and keeps costs down in the long run and all of that. So I appreciate GSA putting this together, and that's why I was just curious in terms of timing and moving forward and all of that. So This whole list, you would anticipate you said these first couple projects in 12 months. How about the whole list? What would be your anticipated time for the whole list to be completed?
2 years at the most. The first 3 pages are down to the ones that are labeled county-wide or GSA projects. Those are in a budget, will happen either this coming fiscal year or the following fiscal year. Even then, there's some flexibility. Something may be in the second year, but if some urgent breakdown occurs, well, then that may get moved up. From there on, the list are ones that are currently in discussion with my various clients, like fire department and hospital or VCMC and others. And they're not 100% locked in, but basically they're looking in, a few of them here at the end of the fiscal year and the rest of them in the next fiscal year. So one of the problems, if I don't get them in this list and then they have a project come up that's more than 175, and we need to come back in another board letter and get board approval. So we do look ahead here a little bit on this thing.
And could you just, in a minute or two, kind of describe what's the process for evaluating? We have so many facilities. What's the process for evaluating to make sure we are not missing something and that we are picking the highest priority projects to put onto this list?
Well, I participate with the GSA task of doing that, and that's where most of the infrastructure is going to occur, and it's based on both a history of expanding problems with maintenance, that type of thing. There's actually a fairly long-range budget that GSA keeps, and it is done by the GSA maintenance folks, but based on their work. But typically, we're able to get the projects, not have things that become crises. So by working ahead on our RQM budget, that seems to work.
Is there, we were trying to inventory sort of all of our assets. Is there a maintenance schedule, deferred maintenance schedule associated with those assets, like how, okay. All right, great, all right, how after so many years we should be replacing roofs, after so many years we should be oiling the escalator, whatever that is. I mean, is that computerized and comprehensive out there, or is that something we just sort of, we're starting to get maintenance issues, and so we can you help me with that?
Yeah, good morning, Supervisor Bennett. For the record, I'm Dave Sasek, the Director of the General Services Agency. And to answer your question, we do have through our maintenance group, we have a list of projected projects that looks out a number of years. It's based upon the experience and what's between the ears of our building engineers. We do have a computer maintenance management system that we're starting to populate with asset management to be a little bit more systematic approach to it. We do look ahead, but we're really relying right now truly on the knowledge and expertise of our building managers and our engineers. And we're in the process of putting together an RFQ to hire a consultant to come in and kind of do a soup to nuts overview of all of our facilities to develop really a 5 or 10 year master plan of required maintenance to give us a facilities condition index on each of the buildings. So you look at the building value versus the backlog of maintenance and repair required to keep it operational. So we're kicking off that whole process, and the intent is to get all that into our CMMS system so that we can have, to build upon the corporate knowledge that we have and make it more database driven and from that nature. So we have it, but we're trying to improve upon what we have and attack it more systematically.
After that consultant comes through and when you have sort of a more complete package, I hope you'd let us know. I'd love to be able to look at a document that talks about 5 years out, this
right.
is what we should be doing, 10 years out, this is what we should be doing.
Yes, sir, absolutely. That's our intent. As a matter of fact, we're going to be bringing the RFQ to the board because it's a pretty significant effort. Mm-hmm. So you'll see the project before it starts, and then we'll come back and report out when it's completed.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Supervisor Long, and then...
I just appreciate this list. I've been to many of these facilities, and even at the EP Foster Library, seeing the leakage there from the windows and certain things, those are definite musts that we need to be prevention and fixing the problems before they get worse. I'm totally in support of seeing for each building, grading what needs to be fixed and making sure that we have a budget to do those fixes so that we're not costing their county and our taxpayers money more on the end if we don't get this. So I appreciate it. I know we have a huge brain trust in the GSA, and having to put it down on paper and make sure that we have a watch on every building is extremely important. So I appreciate the support, and as soon as you can bring that up so we can get this moving, the better, especially with budgeting and so forth. So
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. And so we're really close to trying to get that together. We're working with other counties that have gone through it, trying to learn lessons from them. So it's a big deal. We want to get it done right the first time. So we're taking our time in a hurry, as we can say that. So.
Thank you, Dave. Mr. Powers.
Thank you. Chair Zaragoza, board members. So there is the other part of this process that I want to highlight is that GSA and our office work with the departments as well. The building managers have their information, but we also ask the departments, where are you, what are your needs? And then we refine this list. This is the 5-year list, so we do have a list, what it would take going out that long. And then we refine this every year, actually a couple times a year as we make adjustments. So it is exactly what you're talking about. What Mr. Sasek is talking about is further refining that process, but it's very much involves the entire county in developing this list. And to point out your point, Supervisor Bennett, your board has continued to fund required maintenance through the recession, nonstop, has not curtailed this, which would be an easy thing to do, sort of hold the line and hang on during those dark times, but you haven't done that. So just to remind you.
Two things. I think it's a sign of the economic health of the county when people are trying to compare just like having pension obligation bonds to pay off. Oh, we're funded, but you got pension obligation bonds. Or, oh, we've got a good reserve, but we have a huge backlog of deferred maintenance. The other thing is I do want to recognize that no matter what you come up with in terms of a computer program and a list, et cetera, there is great value in just sort of the experience of your talented engineers saying, I'm telling you, this is, so I don't want to discount that in any way. So thank you very much.
Right, and I didn't mean to do that either.
Yeah,
Those guys are incredibly valuable to the team.
Great,
absolutely.
thanks.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Okay. What's the pleasure of the board? First and second. First and second is vote. And that's approved. Thank you. Our next item is 9:30 time certain, and this is adoption of resolution authorizing and directing the execution of a joint exercise of powers agreement, creating the Fillmore Pyro Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency, and adoption of a resolution appointing a director to that agency. Mr. Pratt.
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza, board members, Mr. Powers. For the record, my name is Jeff Pratt. I'm with the County Public Works Agency. I'm here to present the next item to you, which is a joint powers agreement and resolution for the Fillmore Pyru Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I need to start by saying there's been a correction, which was made late yesterday, to the name of the environmental group. And where did I put it? There it is. The name that was in the board packet was the Santa Clara River Watershed Stakeholders Committee. That has been changed to the Santa Clara River Environmental Groundwater Committee, SCR-EGC. Those changes affect pages 3, 7, and 8, and it's name change only.
So it's the same organization, it's just them?
It's a different name, right?
There was a conflict of the name, sounded very similar to something else, so then they came up with that.
Mr. Chair, for the record, what document is that you're revising, sir?
Oh, the Joint Powers Agreement. Okay. By way of background, your board last heard this item on March 7th. At that hearing, staff received direction to go back and modify the agreement. A lot of the conversation was based on balanced representation, and your board told us to treat the enviros the same way we were treating the pumpers. The modified agreement was negotiated over a number of weeks. Supervisor Long and her staff, along with us, led the negotiations with the City of Fillmore and United and the pumpers. The environmental stakeholder agreement, in the agreement, the environmental stakeholder has to be a member of a 501(c), the stakeholder member. That means not a regulator. And it has to be selected by the Santa Clara River Environmental Groundwater Committee. And if that committee is not formed, you'll see on page 8, or if they're unable to do so, that member would be nominated by the Nature Conservancy. As I said, negotiations were over the last few weeks. The JPA revisions were prepared by United Water Conservation District Council. They were reviewed by staff along with the county council. And they are all, they've all been made and were attached and put into SIRE along with the map. And there's a letter to the Board of Supervisors, one letter, I believe, from Kior and Moss. I understand as of late yesterday that the item was not passed by the City of Fillmore or United during their meetings last week. And I understand late yesterday that some revised language was submitted or that they have a problem with the environmental representative. Staff is still recommending adoption based on this meeting with your board's direction on the 17th, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions of Mr. Pratt?
Well, actually, I'd like to give some more detail. So, first of all, I would like to just thank you. Thank you to everyone coming to the table. This has been a very long process. There wasn't a lot of movement since July of last year. I coming in and stick my nose into things and trying to get a compromise, trying to get the groups to the table and to have some really good discussions. And they have not always been the most fun discussions, but discussions that we need to make sure that we can have, that we can create this Fillmore and Piru groundwater basin group and the JPA. So I wanted to thank you, first of all, United, City of Fillmore, both the Fillmore pumpers, the Piru pumpers. I would like to thank my staff, Martine Hernandez and Paul Grossgold, also yourself, Jeff, and Glenn, all the board members that are on this. I mean, this is not a easy agreement. I'd like to thank Steve Bennett. I've been working with him and his staff just since the last meeting to make sure that we get all of the discussions out there. And so I understand a lot of what everyone's saying, and there's some confusion. I'd like to make sure that we hear from our public, and we also hear from our county council. From the last meeting also, there was a motion from this board to put an environmental stakeholder on boards like this. And so we have been working, that was a new item, and so we have also been working to put that in as part of the board of directors. And I wanted to say thank you, because I know sometimes that's not always easy to swallow when you're being told to do something. And I believe that we have a lot of compromise on the table, so I wanted to thank everyone for that. There's also been a lot of push since that time for an environmental group to come together, the Santa Clara River Environmental Groundwater Committee. They have since, there's been a change on City of Fillmore, and United voted no on this agreement that you're seeing today, minus the name change. And from what I'm understanding, and I could be wrong, but what I'm understanding is the fact that there was not an MOU signed at that time. So the environmental group hadn't come together to create a legal entity. And so now there's a discussion, and the reason why I was asking to wait for the next week when Peter is here as well, or Supervisor Foy, is to make sure we have this good discussion with all of us here in regards to now that the 4 entities, Friends of the Santa Clara River, Cal Trout, Audubon, and the Nature Conservation, they are all 503Cs. They've gotten an MOU saying that there's an agreement. Is that legal entity enough to state that their committee name in this document? Making sure that if we approve this today, that we're still listening to City of Fillmore and United stating that this is a legal entity. Now they are all part of 501(c)(3)s, and those are all legal entities, and this MOU creates a bond, an agreement, but is that legal from our county council? And so I'd like to ask that from our county council, because when I'm understanding the language, an MOU is an agreement, but it doesn't have legal binding as to an actual agreement, such as forming a 503C together, but that costs money. And I understand that. And the environmentals are coming together because we told them we need them to. And so I'm sure they would prefer not to put money together to create this entity. But then also the Fillmore pumpers and the Piru pumpers have come together and created an entity and paid that money. So it's something that I want to make sure we have discussion out in public. And I'd like to hear from you, Leroy, as to your thoughts on that.
Mr. Chair, can I just ask Supervisor Long to just add one other part to your question, so that the county council, which is about the legality of the MOU, but also just the legality of this JPA. In other words, does county council have any hesitation legally about us signing it? Is this a legal GPA for us to sign with this MOU, with this reference to this MOU in there?
Right.
That's really the fundamental question.
Because
legal.
We are so close. Like it's just right in front of us. And I believe everyone is in agreement on everything except for putting the name of this committee into the JPA. They have suggested, and it was just with all the voting of the different boards, there's an amendment that I could put on the table today that states, please remove the committee name. It's all same verbiage. It's everything is the same except for that committee name because it's not a legal entity. So I would really like to talk on that part.
Mr. Leroy?
Yes, thank you. I'll do the best I can. The reference to a committee, I think, is not a reference to a legal entity. I mean, a committee is not considered a legal entity in the sense that it could sue and be sued or contract in its own name. But it is an practical association or group of entities. And as I understand it, to be eligible to be in this committee, you have to be a 501c3 environmental group that actually is active out in the river area and has a budget. There's certain criteria. So I think it's a legal agreement, in my view, the JPA, the way it's structured, because it recognizes that committee. And in the end, I think the critical part of this is that the three members of the JPA, which would be the county, the city of Fillmore, and United, have to agree by a majority vote of those three entities if the nominee from the committee meets the test. And ultimately, that's the check on this, because the three members will decide whether these committee members are representative of the intent that's expressed in the JPA and whether this nominee is someone that they want to approve. But so I may be rambling, but it's not, the committee's not a legal entity, but the members will really determine that when they accept the nominee or not. And so, you know, I think it will work out because the JPA contemplates also bylaws will be drafted by this committee, and ultimately the JPA itself will draft bylaws, and a lot of those sort of unknown areas should be fleshed out as the bylaws and things are adopted. But bottom line is, committee is not a legal entity of itself, but it is an action that the JPA contemplates, that these groups will get together and the three members will decide whether that nominee fits the description. So that's all legal to do.
So it's perfect, from your perspective, it's perfectly legal for us to approve this JPA today.
It's legal to do it, and also this MOU that Supervisor Long talked about, it is evidence of that this group is complying with the sort of the direction and intent that's in the JPA.
Great, thank you.
And an MOU, as I talked about before, is it's not a binding contract. It's more of a understanding, as the name implies, and sort of a collective, promise to one another to go forward under those terms.
Right. And so I appreciate your comments on that. Please let me reiterate that the City of Fillmore and United did not have the MOU signed when they voted. And so I know that there are speaker cards here today, and I would appreciate that we be able to hear from them, because as a public entity, we can't have these discussions behind closed doors. And so I can only speak with one board member, and I have chose because of the proposal for the environmental being on and making sure that we do this correctly. I've been speaking with Steve Bennett. However, the other board members have not heard from the other entities, and if we are going to join in a partnership, I want to make sure that we hear all sides.
Thank you. Supervisor Bennett?
Thank you. I know, Mr. Pratt, could you come up? I know that one of the issues, Supervisor Long talks about having some fallback language that she could propose here. And there's been references to going to the Upper Ventura River model that we have. And so from your perspective, and what you know about the Upper Ventura River model, does the Upper Ventura River model meet the direction of the Board of Supervisors in terms of what we were asking for in terms of representation and the environmentalists being able to nominate their preferred environmental representative?
Not as I understand it, no, because the Upper Ventura River, the way each of those members, the stakeholder members, were selected was by through the stakeholder members, not through the associations. And board direction was do it like you did with the pumpers. So that's the way I understand it.
Let me clarify the change. I apologize if I jumped in. Let me clarify the change. The alternate language is just to remove a member of the Santa Clara Environmental Groundwater Committee from the verbiage. It still talks in regards to an environmental organization, and then it also has the backup is the nature conservation.
I'm sorry, I haven't seen that, so I can't speak to it, but I did talk with Mauricio from United Water last night when I heard that there might be a problem with this. And his position after talking with his counsel and calling me back was that we make it like the Upper Ventura River. And I said, well, that would require that we just have a slate of nominees from the Pumpers Association, the stakeholder members. That was the question I was answering. Sorry.
Thank you. So, so I appreciate that. So, and we've got the answer from County Council, which was my other question. And so I just want to point this out. And Brian, could you cue me up so I could get these slides out there? I too appreciate working with Supervisor Long on this, and I appreciate the efforts in terms of trying to get us forward. Thank you. There we go. So March 7th, the board meeting, there were two of the directions. There were some other directions, but two of the directions were balanced representation and that environmental organizations meet to select their representative just like the pumpers do. So out of that, staff was sent, and Supervisor Long was added to the team to do that, and staff was sent to bring us to negotiate with those two things. We didn't specify exactly what would require balanced representation. We said it could be 3, 2, 7, whatever. We just said it needed to be balanced if you're going to, and our policy was if you add a pumper, you need to add a representative of an environmental organization. Supervisor Long negotiated a 6-member board, 2 pumpers and 1 environmental rep, which would on the surface not read as exactly what the board policy was in terms of balanced representation. But with voting adjustments there, which is that the pumper from Piru would vote on the Piru things, and the pumper from Fillmore would vote on the Fillmore things. But the one place where it was a little bit of, is if it was something that dealt with both basins, both pumpers would vote, and there would only be 1 environmental vote. But by requiring 4 votes, it was close enough to balanced representation that, at least from my perspective, it was a reasonable compromise. And but the language on the environmental organization was not there a few weeks ago, and so Supervisor Long and I we worked and we reached agreement on that new language for the environmental organizations, and then that went back out there, As soon as we reached that agreement, Supervisor Long and I reached out to the environmental groups and contacted them and said, you've got to move fast, because Supervisor Long wanted this to go to Fillmore and United last week, and the environmental groups did work fast and hard. I really appreciate E.J. Remsen from the Nature Conservancy. They crafted an MOU. They reached agreement on the MOU. They actually got their boards together to approve and sign the MOU, and so they worked really hard to make that happen. Then last Thursday, similar to what Supervisor Long has said, I was told that United and Fillmore wanted the group to actually sign the MOU, that they weren't willing at their boards to vote to approve a committee that hadn't actually, come into existence yet. And so in communication with Supervisor Long's staff, I assured them I would reach out to the environmentalists and try to make sure the MOU was signed by the time we got here today. I did talk to Mr. Remsen last Thursday, and they reached out and they got the MOU signed. It was yesterday afternoon that we were presented with new language, and I would offer to you that the new language is more than just removing the name, unless Supervisor Long has different language from yesterday afternoon's language, but it doesn't treat the environmentalists like the pumpers per the board direction. And this is the new language. I'm sorry, this is the language, that's just the language where we put that in, but this is the new language that is being presented. And I would turn you to the second sentence. It says, the nomination shall be submitted to the board of directors pursuant to a process. Well, one more. There we go. This is it. For the environmental stakeholder director, the stakeholder director should be an active member of a nonprofit 501c3 organization, a member of the Santa Clara River Watershed, and by the way, that should be the new language, Groundwater Stakeholders Committee. Mm-hmm. At the sole direction of the member directors, that's not the language. Here we go. Let's see if I can go backwards. Anyway, I'll have to read that language to you then, all right, because in trying to move fast, this all, by the way, I'm sure there would be more environmentalists here, but not hearing about this until yesterday afternoon, this new language, we certainly...
Would you like me to read it?
Yes, yes, please.
Okay. So the member directors shall consider the nominees at a regular meeting and shall appoint the environmental stakeholder director upon a vote of the all member directors. If the member director does not accept the potential environmental stakeholder director nominated by the environmental organizations, the member director should request additional nominees. So the question, the real question was the fact, did I not read all of it?
Yeah,
the nomination shall be submitted by the member directors pursuant to the process determined by the member directors?
Well, the new language that was submitted to us yesterday said this, essentially, that the member directors, that's the county, the city of Fillmore, and United, would select an environmentalist from nominations made by environmental organizations.
Oh, here it is.
So, okay.
The member directors shall select the environmental stakeholder director from qualified nominees submitted by environmental nonprofit 501c3 organizations.
Could you stop right there, just because I know it's hard for everybody. So that was organizations, right? And so that's the key part, is that the member directors are going to accept nominations from environmental organizations. So any of the environmental, there's not this opportunity for the environmental organizations to follow the direction of the board, which was to come together and nominate somebody that the environmental organizations had confidence in. Instead, it would be any environmental organization can make a nomination, and that's similar to the Ventura River. So that is a material difference. It's not just taking the name out. It is actually changing the process. The environmental organizations that have spent the last couple of weeks really hustling to create this organization, that organization would have no official standing in this. Their nominee would have no official standing in this. Mm-hmm. And that is so thank you for reading that, but it's the plural aspect of that. And if the grounds are that, what the grounds that were reported to us last Thursday were that these environmental organizations were.
Come together.
These environmental organizations had not signed the MOU yet, that's been eliminated. If it's that these environmental organizations need to form a new 501c3, county council has addressed that. And if their county councils, what was reported to us is that they had to form a new 501c3 organization, that didn't seem to make sense. To them, there's no need to that, and county council has said they don't need to do that for us to go forward. So the language that staff has brought to us is the language that is consistent with the board direction. The language that you're being requested to introduce here today is not consistent with allowing the environmentalists to be treated just like the pumpers, because the pumpers get to nominate their nominee. Mm-hmm. And that's officially recognized in the JPA. We asked that the environmental organization that forms be treated just like the pumpers. They should get to nominate. That way, the environmental organizations have confidence. And again, it can't be rammed down their throat, because the member organizations can still say no and ask for another nominee. But the environmental organization stakeholders should be treated just like the pumpers. This language, because of the plural, doesn't do that. Thank you very much.
So, Chair, since we've had this good discussion, and I think we've laid it all out there, could we hear the comments from the public, unless Supervisor Parks has some?
Parks.
Yeah, I just want to thank Supervisor Long for working and being a part with staff on trying to get resolution. As you're saying, you're so close, and I'm glad you're able to work with Supervisor Bennett on that. I just wanted to point out that at the beginning of the meeting, we were looking at postponing this. So we have 5 members on the board to discuss it. But also, it sounds to me that it's not quite baked yet. It needs a little bit more time, but I do think you're quite close, and I think your request that we continue could allow for that also, to be able to resolve this. It's hard to wordsmith right here, trying to get exactly what everyone needs, so I'm glad that you're able to reach as far as you have been able to at this point. I actually don't have the copy of the most recent. Our Public Works Director apparently doesn't have a copy of the most recent either, so that would be helpful. This doesn't, are you suggesting it's in here? Because this just kind of ends without the rest of it. It stops on page 8, and I need the rest of it. So
it's not complete.
I'm just saying I don't have the information.
Okay. We'll get that information for Supervisor Parks. And I'm going to call the speakers. We have 6 speakers, and I'm going to allow 3 minutes. And it's Sean Borowski and Paul, followed by Paul Jenkins. Sean first. 3 minutes.
Thank you very much. Good morning, members of the board. My name is Sean Borowski with Ventura County CoLab. And we want to speak today in support of the efforts by United Water Conservation District, City of Fillmore, and Supervisor Long in negotiating this joint exercise of powers agreement. The groundwater sustainability agencies are an important component of ensuring that future groundwater supplies are managed responsibly, and their decisions are going to have far-reaching consequences for water users in this area, as well as key industries in our county, such as agriculture. Therefore, it's important that the membership of the GSAs include representatives with deep knowledge of the region and with a stake in the outcome of any decision the agency makes. On March 7th, the board expressed its desire to see environmental representatives included in the GSA. But we feel that the original JPA adequately balanced water use with environmental concerns, but the parties have accepted the inclusion of environmental representative was necessary. However, the proposed JPA before the board is defective in a key way. The JPA requires that the environmental stakeholder director be nominated by a group called the Santa Clara River Watershed Stakeholders Committee. Oh, no, sorry, it's now the Environmental Protection Committee? Environmental Groundwater Committee, I apologize. So I think the important point here is that this organization does not yet even exist. Its membership requirements are unknown. Its bylaws are unknown. Their criteria for selecting a nominee within the group is unknown. Its leadership structure is unknown. Its methods for adjudicating disputes or enforcing accountability within the group are unknown. Even the very name of this organization has been changed the day before this meeting. The plain fact is that the signatories to the JPA would be agreeing to give a non-existent, privately run organization without any governing documents the exclusive ability to nominate a director to the Fillmore-Piru Basin GSA. This is simply not a wise decision just from a good government perspective, which is why both the City of Fillmore and United have voted to reject the JPA as currently written. Fortunately, we have an example for the alternative arrangement that alleviates these concerns, one that has already been approved by the board. We had a discussion about the Upper Ventura River GSA here, and from our perspective, this adequately brings environmental representation to the board, which is what the board originally requested that this JPA include. This is a much better process and allows the member directors themselves to choose. I encourage the board to take the time to make sure these negotiations are done right, and that the process is given time to gather all the information, especially about this new group, and to make sure that everything is done with all the knowledge that we can get before we sign any documents and we finalize this JPA. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sean. We have Paul Jenkins, followed by E.J. Remsen.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Paul Jenkins. I'm the Ventura campaign coordinator for the Surfrider Foundation. Surfrider is very concerned about what goes on in our watersheds because ultimately all of that affects our coasts, and whether it's sand supply or water quality, all of that is related to what goes on upstream. I'm on the steering committee of the Ventura River Watershed Council, and on the Ventura River Watershed Council we've had a lot of activity from environmental representation throughout the year since the formation of that council. So I bring that up because in the Upper Ventura River Basin Groundwater Agency that was just formed, the directing agencies of that basin actually selected somebody who has not been really active in the watershed over the past decade or more, and so it's a question of how we can best get a real representative who's had real experience within the watershed. So I commend all your efforts to try and bring this all together and get this. I think that the Upper Piru Basin has the potential for being a real example of how to do this right. And so it's all really confusing. It's changing on the as we sit here right now. But I just want to make sure that I relate that experience on the Upper Ventura River, which I don't really feel was done quite right, and I think you can do better. Thank you.
Mr. Jane, I just want to be clear. So a choice between doing it the way the Upper Ventura River one was set up or the language that staff has in front of us right now, which is to have the environmental organizations come together and they themselves come up with a nominee to submit. You prefer that to the way the Upper Ventura River was set up, correct?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense for the environmental representation to be able to select their own rep on the board. So, yeah.
Similar to how the pumpers do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you.
E.J. Remsen, followed by Jim Hines.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is E.J. Remsen. I'm with the Nature Conservancy and also with the Environmental Groundwater Committee that you've spoken about. We strongly recommend that you adopt the language that was in the last draft that I saw of this JPA that allows the environmental groups to select their own nominee. We think it's only fair that the environmental groups be able to choose their own nominee, just like the pumpers should be able to choose their own nominee. At your direction, we scurried around. We had our legal counsel prepare this MOU. We're assured that it is all that's needed to provide an appointee to the GSA. We have active MOUs right now with the City of Oxnard, with the United States Navy, where we've acquired millions of dollars with the Navy, millions of dollars of real estate on behalf of the Navy with just an MOU. We have an MOU nationally with the United States Army Corps of Engineers, with the Coastal Conservancy, and we actually have an MOU we operate under with the Watershed Protection District here at the county. So I don't think an MOU or anything beyond an MOU is necessary simply to appoint a member to represent the environmental groups. And as it's been stated, we've formed this committee, we scurried around. We now have one other member. The Friends Keeps SB Wild is signed on. We've worked very quickly to try to get enough members to meet your deadline here. And we would really like to see this brought to a conclusion as soon as possible. We've been conducting a fire drill, had to stop a lot of our own work, and our member organizations, they're all corporations that have had to do the same, stop to get this done to satisfy the direction of the Board of Supervisors. So I really urge you, I think we've got a good compromise here. We've got a lot of work to do in these GSAs. Let's get past this and let's get to work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Jim Hines, followed by Tony Morgan.
I'm sorry, I have questions for Mr. Remsen.
We've got a question by Supervisor Bennett. Mr. Remsen.
The CoLab representative was talking about how sort of nobody knows anything about your organization and that there's nothing that's been decided yet. Does your MOU meet your legal counsel's sort of definitions in terms of the committee being formed and how decisions are going to be made, et
Yes,
cetera?
and all the signatories that are all corporations, they've also reviewed it too. So the reason that people haven't seen it is because we've worked at a very rapid pace to try to get this done and for this Board of
But the Nature
Supervisors.
Conservancy and your attorneys feel confident the committee is now completely formed and does have rules of operation, et cetera.
Right, and not only that, I asked them last evening, and they felt that forming a corporation to simply nominate someone to a committee was complete overkill. So,
They thought it was overkill to form a 501c3.
to have a 501c3s form a 501c3 to make a nominee.
Yeah, to make a nomination. Okay, that
Right.
it's overkill to do that, number one. And then two, Friends of the Santa Clara River, I don't see them on the list here.
No, I talked to Ron Bodorf, I talked to Cal Trout. They both asked me to, and thank you for reminding me to mention that even though they can't be here, they're in support of getting this proceeding with the original language in the GAPA and get this decision made now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jim, and then followed by Tony Morgan.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Jim Hines. I live here in Ventura. I'm representing the Sierra Club. It's unfortunate that the big elephant in the room on this issue is the environment. The environment dominates groundwater in our area. And all we're asking for is to be treated as equals, like the pumpers. We nominate an well-qualified environmental person to be on the board. They're accepted. The board starts meeting and taking action. The longer we delay this, the biggest consequence will be to the environment itself. Too much pumping, not enough rain, what regulations are going to be enacted or not enacted regarding this in the future. So you need to act now and follow staff's recommendation. The environmental community is not the boogeyman. We're not going to dominate this committee. We're not going to hurt you. We just want one person. Be nominated by those of us in the community, environmental community, who work on these issues daily. We have a Santa Clara River Task Force person, a lady who just works on protecting the Santa Clara River for our body. And so we have some strong nominees we want to nominate, and the holdup's just going to make the environment suffer. So we ask that you treat us like the pumpers, treat us as equals. We will be equals on the committee itself when it's formed, and follow staff's recommendation and vote today. Thank you.
Thank you. Tony Morgan, followed by Kathy Brimar, excuse me.
Good morning, Chair, Supervisor, staff. For your records, Tony Morgan, Deputy General Manager for United Groundwater Conservation District. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today. I'm going to try to jump to some of the meat of the issues that we're talking about. The United Water Conservation District Board of Directors last week rejected the language in the JPA. That was before them at that time. It's the language you see here today. That rejection circled around the language of the Environmental Committee and our councils, our legal counsel's guidance, let's put it that way, to our board of directors that it would be imprudent of them to enter into a legal document that places substantive responsibility on an entity that A, had not organized yet and would not likely organize as a legal entity. An MOU, per legal counsel's guidance, is not a legal entity sufficient for him to recommend to our board that they should adopt that language. So there's that. There was no discussion, and we've sort of morphed the conversation this morning in that there's discussion about not being an environmental stakeholder and the environmental groups not being able to nominate someone. That language has never existed here recently. So there's nothing like that on the table at all for discussion. What is on the table for discussion is how those nominations are done. From staff at United's perspective and our board of directors' perspective, the identification of a single entity to provide the nominations for the environmental stakeholders puts the impetus on that committee to be all-encompassing. They must have everyone in the tent. Because if they don't, that means those entities who are not a part of the committee don't have a mechanism anymore to nominate someone to be considered for that board seat. So that's why our board is backing up and saying, wait, why do we need to name someone? If we just said environmental groups can nominate someone they feel is appropriate for the position, that could be the committee. That could be anyone who is not a part of the committee also. And so to keep it loose and to keep it broader provides more flexibility for the GSA in the future, provides more flexibility for the variety of environmental stakeholders that are out there. So, thank you.
All right, it's working now. So let me ask you this. So I have some issue with having this discussion and not enough time for everyone to review the alternate. It did come in quicker. So do you think if we were to move this motion to next week, would we be able to come to the table and have some more discussion so that we can all agree on the language that we're presenting today?
Well, I appreciate the timeline on this because our board met Wednesday, City of Fillmore's board, or City Council rather, met Tuesday night, and on Thursday, staff was busy trying to adjust language to incorporate what they'd heard over the last 2 days. So I realized the timeline was very abbreviated for that. But I do think it would be worthwhile trying to go forward and trying to figure out how we wordsmith this language so that we get the process down for how the environmental stakeholder nominee is going to be done. It's not a discussion of whether they should or should not be there. That's gone. That ship has sailed. They are going to be there as it's crafted today. So the question that remains is how is that nomination going to be done? And I think there's a window there, if we had a little more breathing room, that we can get this figured out.
So take action on this item today is what you're saying, Tony?
Take action on this item next week.
Oh, I thought you said
Mr. Morgan,
Yes, go ahead.
I have a couple questions for
Sure.
you. One, your proposal that there not be an environmental organization that that comes together to make a nomination. Does that proposal then treat the environmentalists just like the pumpers organization?
Yes, it does.
How does that do that if
All
the
groups
pumpers
have-
organizations are allowed to come together and actually make a nominee?
And so the way the general language is, it says that environmental organizations can make a nomination, and so that could be the committee. That group could get together and say, we would like to advance a nomination, and this nomination has the support of the following 5 environmental organizations. So that could be done under the generic language that we're proposing.
There's nothing in the generic language that treats the environmental groups like the pumpers in terms of recognizing that the nominee that would be considered would be the nominee from the pumpers, and if that wasn't acceptable, they would go back to the pumpers organization and ask for another nominee from that pumpers organization.
Correct.
That's correct. So that's not the same as how the environmentalists would be treated. What you're saying is environmental organizations can make nominations, and if they don't like the nominee that comes from the environmental organization that forms, as 5 of them form, they could pick any other environmentalist that was nominated by any other organization if they chose. That's not treating the environmental organizations the same. And Mr. Jenkins, I see Mr. Jenkins leaving there. I just wanted to ask him one additional question. So that doesn't treat them the same, and that's really what the rub is here. Is that the proposal that you're bringing forward does not create the same equality for the environmental organizations as the pumpers, because this JPA actually restricts the members to considering nominations that come from from the pumpers organizations. And if the pumpers organizations don't, then the fallback is the Farm Bureau, and that's why we have that same fallback here. So it's not parallel construction. My second question is, if this board at least indicated that our preference remains that we want the environmental organizations to be treated like the pumpers are being treated, then one of the ways we could make that really clear is we say this language does accomplish that. Because quite frankly, the language that's being speculated on out here is just that. It hasn't actually been officially presented even. It's been read, and it's very hard for people to get. We have language that's come to us from our staff that does treat the environmental organizations like the pumper organizations. And so my question is, if we support this language today, it would make it very clear this language works for us. Doesn't mean that you couldn't come up with some alternative language as long as it did that, but it would allow us to indicate we have we at least know that this language works, and this would be a way for the board to indicate that language works. My question for you is, do you recognize that we could change this JPA later if you are able to come up with better language? But certainly in the 3 weeks that this issue has been out there, since March 7th that we've been talking, this issue has been raised over and over again, and the best language that you've come up with is this language that says that says be nominated by environmental organizations, right? That's not the same as how the pumper's been treated. So would from your perspective, would United be comfortable having us adopt this, and then if you're able to come up with some better language, bring it back to us and we can always change the JPA?
We'd certainly have to run that through our board and legal counsel for their final opinion, but based on what I heard at the discussions at last week's Board of Directors meetings, I would say no at this point in time.
That your board would never accept having an environmental organization be the organization that makes the nominations?
No, that's taking it one step way too far. Yeah. We've said and supported the idea that an environmental organization would make the nomination to the member directors for their evaluation.
Organizations.
It could be organizations. We
Plural.
left it open so that it had the maximum flexibility.
And my question
It is not necessarily a parallel process. The pumpers associations have organized themselves. They are a legal entity. Okay? Their fallback position is an organization that is legally organized and represents many of those members already on other agricultural related issues. So there is no correlative position on the environmental side of the house. There is no overarching environmental organization that would be in the equivalent position of the Farm Bureau. So we're trying to shoehorn in a committee into that role. And our preference is to say, well, let's not try to put that square peg in the round hole right now. Let's leave it loose, give everyone the flexibility. If that committee can organize and get however many there are, 8, 10 environmental organizations together and come forth with one voice, awesome. That's fine. If they can nominate the person they think is the best candidate for that. We think that provides the ultimate flexibility. It allows us to move forward with this. It avoids the issues of the language that the City of Fillmore and United electeds have issues with, and we can move forward and get on with the business of establishing a GSA, and that we do have a short timeline. Yes. We have about a 45-day window from June 30th backing up, so You can look at a calendar and find out time is of an essence
And
here.
because we have that timeline, which was emphasized to us last time when this came forward, it's we have this interesting thing. We have this timeline. It seems like we ought to at least indicate what the board can support. And I would find it hard for anybody to make the case that the language in front of us right now is not language that accomplishes what the board voted on a 3-2 vote, which was to make sure the environmental organizations are treated like the pumpers. Thank you, Mr. Morgan, for that. That they're treated like the pumpers, because this language that you're talking about, when you say go to organizations, when I say we have this situation where you have to go back to that environmental organization. If you don't want their nominee, you have to go back to them. That's what gives the pumpers that's what gives them equivalency with the pumpers. And if the language that you're presenting says it could be any environmental organization and we can consider anything we want, that does not make the environmentalist be treated like the pumpers are being treated. So thank you very much.
Supervisor Long, you still?
Yeah.
Supervisor Parks?
From the information I'm reading here, I don't understand what Supervisor Bennett is talking about, because it says clearly that I'm not seeing organization singular, I'm seeing it plural. If we're all coming down to whether there's an S or not at the end of a word, and otherwise this all works, it just seems to me that this is something that has already been compromised. You've already reached a compromise in the sense that you're saying, let the environmental groups nominate someone. And just like you've done with the pumpers, if the board doesn't want that nominee, they can ask the environmental groups or they can ask the pumpers for a different nominee. Isn't that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm really missing this. I might not have the right information, but I'm reading this and it's stating specifically organizations. If the member directors do not accept the potential environmental stakeholder directors nominated by the environmental organizations, they shall request additional nominees.
I'm sorry, that's not the relevant language, and the frustration is
Can I have it in my hand?
It's the responsibility.
Let's go one at a time.
Well, I would agree. It's the responsibility of the people that want some other alternative language to present it to us. And it's only been read one time into the record. Present that language. But what you heard read into the record is not this if they want somebody else. What the key element, and I'm going to ask Mr. Jenkins to come up, please. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. I've got a question for Mr. Jenkins. The key element here is this language that environmental organizations, when you say only an S, as soon as they do two things with their language. They take out the name of the group that Mr. Remsen, the Nature Conservancy, and all the environmentalists have worked hard to create. Okay. So they eliminate that name.
That's certainly something we can reinstate.
Okay. Well, if you reinstate that name, then you have to say that environmental organization is going to...
those five entities, you've got the Nature Conservancy...
Supervisors, why don't we go one at a time? One at a time.
Yeah,
let him finish.
I'm just saying, I think this isn't in an effort to resolve this situation.
Why don't we do this? Let the supervisor finish, and then you can go ahead.
And then I'll be happy to listen to that.
Thank you.
If you eliminate the name of the organization, and then you say environmental organizations, that you have completely changed the document. Sometimes one letter and one name. So if you want the environmental organization that E.J. Remsen and the environmentalists have created to be the one that makes the nomination, you can't use the language that strikes their name. If you put their name in, then you need to say the environmental organization will make the nomination. That's what is consistent with the board direction.
I still don't quite understand what you're saying. I'm sorry, I must be dense. I just don't understand. You're saying you want it to be these five organizations. Do you mind if I discuss this? These five organizations should be the ones that select, and that, I think no one's disagreeing with that.
To be the ones that...
And I think
can I just clarify while you're on that point?
I just want to finish if I can. And what I think the issue is, those five organizations have established an umbrella name.
Right.
And that umbrella name is of concern because there is no entity. So if we take the umbrella name off, just throw those 5 organizations out there that these are the ones that will select, you're there. So it's almost like how many angels can dance on the head of a pin. They're agreeing that the organizations can do this. It's just how you phrase it in here. And that's why I'm saying it's a matter of wordsmithing. They're not objecting to those 5 organizations being the one.
Thank you, Supervisor
At least
Bennett.
my understanding of it is.
Thank you.
I don't believe that is an accurate representation, that the 5 organizations would be the ones that they would rely on in terms of doing this. The idea is that, and we'll need Mr. Remsen to come up also, but the idea is that the environmentalists through this organization would come together and make one nomination, not 5 organizations making 5 nominations. You have to reference that somehow in this document, or else you're going to have some problems. So when you say the 5 organizations, you have to reference that effort of those 5 organizations to do that. Mr. Jenkins, if I could just ask you, does it make a substantial, and you would support that?
Definitely
Good,
support that.
great.
Put the 5 names in there and say that they will select one person.
Well, and that's what you do when you call out this organization. Now, they still have other organizations that meet their criteria in terms of doing that. But Mr. Jenkins, if I could, I realize this is, we don't have their language in front of us. But would you prefer language that said, like the Upper Ventura River, that says environmental organizations can nominate? Or would you prefer language that an environmental organization representing the other environmental organizations do the nomination?
Well, just to be clear, on the Upper Ventura River, environmental organizations did not nominate a candidate. It was nominated by the Upper Basin itself. Mm-hmm. So just to be clear, I think that either way that you're going on this is going to achieve the result that the environmental organizations will nominate a representative. And I think as long as that is clear in whatever language you end up deciding on, just to make sure that representation is adequate.
Is a representative of the collective voice of the environmental organizations.
Yeah, exactly, and not nominated by the groundwater basin itself.
So because there was a switch there that you did, Mr. Bennett, is the environmental organizations can submit, or is it one environmental organization that is representing all the environmental organizations submit? It's really, we're talking verbiage of just
yeah, you're down to semantics, and typically we all work as a coalition. I mean, just like everybody's trying to communicate and figure out who the best representative is. So I think as long as that is clearly laid out in whatever the agreement is today, I think we'll get to where we need to be.
Okay, and that again is why I'm just asking for another week, so that we are all in agreement and we can all go to our boards and be able to vote yes on it. So that's why I'm just having these good discussions.
I have another
and we have one
speaker
more.
Yeah, and I would be supportive of putting the 5 names in there that everyone agrees with, that those would be the ones that do it. And we do the same thing on the Behavioral Health Advisory Board. We have a public member that's selected by the different organizations, the Client Network and NAMI, and it works.
Let me call Kathy Bremer. Mm-hmm. It's the last speaker.
I am going to be very brief. Good morning, everyone, board
Good morning.
supervisors. This has been thoroughly discussed here today, so I probably don't have much more to add, but to emphasize that we do take a collaborative approach. The environmental groups that work regularly on the Santa Clara River, its tributaries, and the backcountry are the most knowledgeable about what goes on in the Santa Clara River watershed and the basins. And I would like to see somehow the language come together, that these groups come together in some way that satisfies everyone, if possible, to nominate someone to be on the board of the groundwater basin. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Let me share something with the board real quick. We discussed protocol last time. Let's take one supervisor at a time, and then if somebody else wants to speak, then let's address a chair.
Could I ask,
Supervisor
could
Bennett.
I ask Mr. Remsen, who's worked really hard on this, to come forward? Right. Number one, there's this reference to these 5 organizations. Those are the 5 organizations that have been able to, or however many have been able to get it through their board so far. It's not the comprehensive list of everybody that would ultimately be part of the organization.
No,
right?
we have, we're circulating, we've got at least a half dozen others we're waiting to hear from.
Great. Okay. So that's one of the issues. I mean, if you want to identify every organization that is then going to come together, we can stop and wait until Mr. Remsen does that. But if Supervisor Parks is saying she does want it to be a collective nominee of the environmental organizations, then this is one way to accomplish it, what you have, and it recognizes or honors the hard work of the Nature Conservancy at this point in time. But if it just goes with the language that you've heard, which is that it's just environmental organizations, plural, then is your perception that undercuts sort of the effort to try to have the environmentalists come up with one nominee that they have come together to support?
I think there's 2 things. One is that, yes, we're trying to organize and discuss this in a semi-formal way so that we get nominees that are a consensus nominee. The second thing is, if it is rejected by the JPA, then who do they come back to? Do they just put it out there in a public notice saying we're willing to accept more nominees? Or would they, I would prefer that they come back to this committee and say, we rejected that person, we want a new nominee from you.
And so that's the essence of what you would like to make sure is preserved in the JPA that the board approves.
Correct.
Great. And that's what I would offer in that, that's what I would offer would capture the spirit of that it has to come from this environmental organization, however somebody decides to name it, and that it needs to go back to that environmental organization for an alternate name if they need to do that. That's your request, and I think it's very reasonable, and I think that's what the environmentalists here in the room are asking for, to make sure that it is somebody that at least has the credibility of the environmental community as it goes forward. So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Supervisor?
I pushed the button and raised my hand. I'm just letting y'all know.
Raise your hand.
I raised my hand, I pushed the button, anything I can get.
Thank you.
Mr. Morgan, could I ask a question of you? I try to be a good listener and solve issues here. So the verbiage I just heard was a collective nominee of the environmental organizations. This committee that we're trying to put together is an MOU, is a committee of the environmental organizations to have a collective nominee. Mm-hmm. The MOU is those organizations coming together. However, I heard that the issue is naming that person naming that group because of a legal entity. If we were just to put verbiage that stated a collected nominee of the environmental organizations, is that fitting? I mean, I feel like we're splitting hairs and we're all trying to get to the same end result, that we can move ahead. So that's my question. I just want the concept versus the name of the committee on there versus actually describing what's going to go on. What's your feeling on that?
I'm kind of warming up to your language of a collective nominee from the environmental groups, something to that effect, as opposed to naming a specific entity. That entity could be the one that does the nomination. That's fine. That's fine. But that sidesteps the issue that the City of Fillmore Council and United's board had with it, the committee not being a legally organized entity. If we can sidestep that by going to the collective nominee from the environmental groups, I think we've got a path forward.
Because my concern today, and I've stated this to Mr. Bennett as well last night, is the fact that, okay, we all agree on this JPA and what we want to do. If we agree on this today, that doesn't solve the problem of Fillmore and United still having an issue with the committee not being a legal entity. I can't not listen to that. So I'm trying to get a compromise here. So that's why I was asking for the delay of the week. But thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. So, Tony, can I ask a question? If we approve it today, then Fillmore and United will not cooperate, will not work with us? Is that...
They're not supportive of that language.
Okay.
May
Supervisor
I take a step further because, and suggest that we call out in the JPA the wording that Supervisor Long used, but specify the 5 groups? Then you have an actual legal entity. It's not one that hasn't formed yet. Would that suit your?
I think that would be sufficient as well.
That's what I would recommend. So when you refer, your language
Mhm.
was coalition or?
It was a collective, what Supervisor Bennett stated was a collective nominee of the environmental organizations.
And it could, and I would just say organizations of the Audubon, Friends of the Santa Clara River, the Nature Conservancy, Cal Trout, and there was one more upper. That to me would be, like you say, kind of just going right to the short-circuiting it and putting it right to exactly
Step
meeting
around
the
the
legal
legal.
requirements. So that works for you?
I think that would work for us.
Yeah, that's what I would
Mr. Bennett.
recommend. Then you have what you need.
Well, you've already heard Mr. Remsen testify that there are more groups than those 5. So as long as, if we want to call out the organizations that make up the Santa Clara River Groundwater Environmental Sustainability Group, if we want to call them out, and because we don't want to use the name, if that's all this is, but that's not what the changed language was, but if that's all this is, we want to call out all the groups, then we need to make sure that we work with Mr. Remsen and we clearly identify all the groups, because it may be more than 5. We work with Mr. Remsen, if I could, let me finish. If we call out those groups and then we say that those groups taking some kind of collective action on their own will make one nominee, and that if that nominee is not acceptable, that the members will go back to that same collective group and deal with that collective group, then you're going to write a lot of verbiage in here to avoid using that name. And if that's really the issue, then there should be no problem if we put down the names of all the environmental organizations that Mr. Remsen's group has come together with. So if Mr. Morgan is saying he's comfortable with that, then that's direction that accomplishes essentially the same thing that you would accomplish according to our legal counsel by simply putting in the name of the organization. But we could put in the names of all of those organizations, the Nature Conservancy and all of those other, but we need to respect Mr. Remsen's efforts, along with the others, to make sure that it's the proper names, not just 5 that happen to be there today, because there are other people that have spent considerable time reviewing this document.
Agreed. I don't think there was any intention of demeaning the effort that EJ's gone to. I understand what it takes to get a group together and organize such as he's done. So I don't think that's a lost effort. That effort of collectively identifying and bringing those folks together will carry forward in this process. If we name the 5 entities or the 8 entities, whatever it turns out to be, I also think we could probably craft some language in there that leaves that door open, that if we forgot somebody and they were to come forth at a later date, they could be included in that collective as well. So I think we have a path forward.
So we clearly don't have 3 votes to go forward today, which would be the most efficient way for us to go forward, because I think in reality this idea of whether we name the organization or whether we refer to them as a collective could happen either way, and it should have been acceptable. But the fact that but we should then, so the motion would be that we direct our staff again, all right, like we did last time, we direct our staff to bring this back again, but bring it back with language that calls out for collective action by the environmental organizations and names the appropriate environmental organizations, right? And that the nomination will come from that collective action of those environmental organizations. And if that nominee is not acceptable, it will go back to that collective organization. And to the extent that we have to name all of those environmental organizations. All right, so anyway, that's my motion. Supervisor Long, does that make sense?
I appreciate your compromise. I understand it. To me, it seems like the semantic of naming the actual committee that's going to do all this, or just the action in what you're doing. And I totally understand the frustration.
We're going to reference the committee.
But this is all on tape. so that we can all go back and make sure we hit the same thing.
So-
So I would second that motion
Great.
Make
and
a
be
motion.
able to bring
Make a
it back. I would like to ask, though, that it is brought back next week.
You want to second that?
That means it won't be filed until Friday because they won't be able to file it tomorrow, I'm sure. But that means we all have to work hard between now and Friday, and I'll commit to working hard with you to try to do that. Okay?
If we can get that commitment, then we can all agree. So I
Great.
will second that.
Great, thank you.
Okay, let's vote.
Include that it does in fact come back next week, is that in the motion?
Yes.
Sure.
Please vote.
There we go. I appreciate the effort to try. We're keeping the spirit of the collective action, so I
And that's
appreciate the effort to compromise.
I
Thank
just
you.
want to share here with the public that I'm going to take item 26, 28, and 25.
Do we have another item in this where we select a director ourselves?
That's a really good point,
That's
Mr.
right.
Pratt. Do you feel we should do the selection of the person on?
Well, it's
Or wait.
agendized item, so
So we can-
I would nominate you so we can get that over with. I'll nominate you as the
And I'll
county's
second that
representative.
nomination.
Okay.
Thank you.
So what we're going to take just a 5-minute break and then.
Wait, hold on.
Need a
We
motion.
have a
Okay.
motion.
And then a second
We
on
have
the
one
floor.
motion that we have to
Okay,
finish.
go ahead.
So the motion on the table is to
Nominate
nominate
you.
myself as the representative for the
From the
County of
board.
Ventura for the
Right.
JPA.
Okay.
From the Board of Supervisors.
From the Board of Supervisors.
Representing
Okay.
the district.
And that's approved. Okay, just
We got one done.
5 minutes, real quick. Quick 5 minutes, and then 26, 28, and
good for bringing
25.
this forward.
I'm going to call the meeting back to order, and the first item I'm going to take is item 20. We're going to go 25, let me see, 25, 26, and 28. Okay? And the first item is, this is a resolution proclaiming the month of April 2017 as Child Abuse Prevention Month in Ventura County. And who's going to take that? Okay, I'm going to read this real quick. It says, the Child Abuse Prevention Month, April 2017 is Child Abuse Prevention Month in Ventura County. Whereas April is the Child Abuse Prevention Month, a time to raise awareness about child abuse and neglect, encouraging individuals and communities to keep children safe, provide support to the families, and need to stay together and raise children and youth to be happy, secure, and thriving adults. And whereas in 2016, the Ventura County Child Abuse Hotline received 10,377 calls alleging child abuse and neglect, and of those, 5,510 referrals were investigated, and child welfare opened 528 new cases. Whereas this month will provide an opportunity to acknowledge those programs and individuals dedicated to serving families and to raise awareness of the community, to the community, employers, and elected officials of the need to strengthen families by providing support and services aimed at eliminating the risk of child abuse and neglect. And remember, it only takes a minute to brighten a child's life with praise, encouragement, and love. Now therefore be resolved, the Ventura County Board of Supervisors commends the partnership for safe families and communities of Ventura County, the Designated Child Abuse Prevention Council, the Ventura County Services Agency, the Ventura County Public Health Agency, all partnering members and outstanding volunteers for the work that they do on behalf of children in promoting communities are committed to be safe, healthy, peaceful families. Ventura County Board of Supervisors thereby proclaims April 2017 as Child Abuse Prevention Month of Ventura County. And go ahead.
Thank you very much for your kind words, Chair Zaragoza, and thank you for the Board of Supervisors for hearing us this morning. I'd like to also acknowledge Judy Weber, Deputy Director of Children and Family Services. She's here. And also to thank Human Services Agency and the many county and community partners for their work, support, collaboration, partnership, and dedication to keeping children safe. National Child Abuse Prevention Month was created to raise awareness and inspire us to do all we can to protect children from abuse and neglect. The partnership is the hub for violence prevention training in Ventura County. We also partner with the Tri-Coastal Coalition, working with Santa Barbara and San Luis Obispo County on child abuse prevention activities as part of the Office of Child Abuse Prevention. As a kickoff to Child Abuse Prevention Month, we held our annual 5K on March 25th. So Lita Dabrowski is going to speak briefly about that.
Good morning, supervisors. We did have our annual 5K. It was a lot of fun. It was our third annual. We had a great turnout, and a lot of families, children, and vendors, different resources that were there, able to share their resources on family violence prevention in Ventura County. And it's going to continue to be an annual tradition for the partnership as a fundraiser and a way to raise awareness about child abuse in our county.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Want to take a photo?
Oh,
Oh, you have video?
We do. Is it
Oh, okay.
still? Yes. So,
We have video? Okay.
yes, in closing, we'd just like to show a brief video created for the partnership by Marino Productions, who donated their time to provide this for us. The Partnership for Safe Families and Communities of Ventura County has been in existence since 1982. Our mission is to promote a community committed to safe, healthy families. We're a collaborative organization who works with others, both agencies and community members, on ensuring optimal development for children and families. We value and believe in the resiliency of families, accountability, and prevention of child abuse, family, and community violence.
My daily commitment to the partnership is to provide awareness through education and resources to families and community members across the lifespan. The goal is to prevent or stop the continuous cycle of abuse. We work closely with our partners to address the needs in the community. Our focus is to help prevent child abuse and neglect, domestic violence, and sexual assault. We also have a committee that works on youth engagement and development.
At the Partnership, we believe that stronger families raise safer kids. We have partnerships with agencies, schools, law enforcement, and the community to create a strong and reliable structure to help families. One of our goals is to give families the tools they need to raise children in safe and healthy environments so they can become confident, independent, and successful adults.
In preventing domestic violence, we discuss the needs of populations affected by domestic violence and identify best practices for working with this population. Additionally, we discuss and address trends in our community and identify referral sources as appropriate. We also provide education and resources in the form of resource fairs and other events to educate the community about this topic.
Preventing sexual assault is a priority in our county, and many agencies join together for this common mission. As a membership organization, we work with others to provide workshops for families to educate and help prevent sexual abuse from occurring. Panel presentations are conducted by therapists, law enforcement, and community representatives. The focus of these presentations is to educate parents on talking to their children about this issue, as well as educating children on safe, appropriate touch.
The Youth Engagement and Development Committee is committed to addressing the issues of youth violence and resolving them with education and prevention methods. One of the goals of this group is to empower youth and families to lead peaceful, successful lives. They support projects that promote peaceful conflict resolution, self-sufficiency, critical thinking, and respect for self and others. They also work to educate and encourage communities and youth to embrace diversity across the lifespan and respect others.
The Partnership for Safe Families has been appointed as the lead for the Child Abuse Prevention Council for Ventura County. There are great opportunities available in our county to create new partnerships with corporations and community leaders. Please call 805-535-4489 or go to www.partnershipforsafefamilies.org to find out more about the partnership and to donate or volunteer today. We all flourish together in a healthy and invigorated community. We can take action to reach and help more families in Ventura County. The partnership would love to connect with you.
Board of Supervisors.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Here's.
Thank you. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here, let me hand this to them.
I have an item I'm going to share up here.
Okay.
Our next item is Master Chief Armas Nahabedian. Come right up. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Master Chief Armas, for the last 30 years, has an honorable and outstanding service in the United States Navy. Whereas Master Chief Armas retired February 11, 2017 in San Diego, California, after 30 years of honorable and outstanding service with the Navy. Today, we celebrate and recognizing many of his achievements Mr. Armas has had. For Mr. Armas has an outstanding resume of work with the U.S. Navy. All of his work paid off in 2011 when he was selected Master Chief. Master Chief and the U.S. Navy constitute the top 1.25%, that's outstanding, of the enlisted members of the maritime forces. For Master Chief Armas, personal decorations include 1, Navy Marine Corps Army Commendations Medals, 3 awards. The Commendation Medal. 3, the Navy Marine Corps Achievement Medals, 5 awards. The Army Achievement Medal. And number 5, the Military Outstanding Volunteer Service, 3 awards. In his civilian career, Mr. Armas being the sole practitioner attorney in Ventura County for 17 years, where he's been consul for several businesses. He's currently a contract administrator for the Ventura County Probation Agency here in Ventura County and lives with his wife, Bridget, and 3 children. Now therefore be resolved that the County of Ventura Board of Supervisors does hereby honor and congratulate Master Chief Armas for his many achievements and contributions to the United States Navy. We wish him well in his new endeavors and a healthy, prosperous retirement with his family and loved ones. Thank you so much for your service, Mr. Armas. Thank you. I think Chief Morella would like to say a couple of words.
Good morning. Well, we were delighted to honor Aramis with this special achievement. We're just delighted to have him as part of our agency. He started with our agency as a contracts administrator last year and has been a huge, tremendous help to our fiscal operation for the agency. So when I found out about his decorated past and the fact that he provided such great service to the nation in his career in the United States Navy, we thought we couldn't let this moment go by without having some type of public recognition. So we're just delighted to have him. He's just been a tremendous asset to our administration team. So thank you for the opportunity to allow us to do this for him.
You want to share a couple of words with us?
Thank you. I just want to thank Chair Zaragoza and the board, CEO's office, Chief Mark Varela, my boss, Chief Deputy Sandra Salorzano, and my other chief deputies, division managers, and probation officers, and all the folks I work with, my probation family, and my family and friends. I'm very humbled and honored for this proclamation, and I look forward to continuing to serve with probation agency, an agency in a county that has shares the same values as the United States Navy of honor, courage, and commitment. Thank you very much.
Is your family here? I asked Mr. Armas if his family is here, but his immediate family is not here, but the rest of the probation family is here.
Absolutely.
Can you come on up? Where is all the probation folks that work with Mr. Armas? Thank you so much for joining us today. And where's your boss, Ms. Solorzano? Where's she hiding? We're going to take a photo here. Mark, what are we getting right behind you?
While everyone's coming up, I would just like to say not only thank you for your service to the
No,
county,
Mr.
but
Armas.
thank you
No, you
also
can-
for your service to our nation. You are a great role model, too, for all those probationers.
Like Indiana Jones. Huh?
What do you mean? This is most important, your resolution.
Look over here. Don't look at them. Look at them. A couple more. Missing one. We got a straggler.
Thank you, Mr. Armas. And you know I have my grandsons in the Navy too, Mr. Armas. So. Absolutely. You know, we go from one hero to the other. This is really important. We have a young man here. We have a PowerPoint too that hopefully maybe the PowerPoint can go up when we speak. So on January the 3rd of this year, the heroic act of Mr. Brian Lutz, come on, Brian, saved the life of Ronaldo Lugo. Brian was driving home from Ventura from Oxnard when he witnessed a head-on collision and instinctively led him to pull him out of a flaming truck, TAF truck. It's always a pleasure for me when I have an opportunity to recognize the life-saving efforts of our residents in Ventura County. I personally want to thank Mr. Lutz for his courage to step in and save someone's life. In today's world, we find ourselves many times standing or waiting for somebody to come in, or maybe a firefighter to come in and save somebody. And too often, maybe we record those items in our phones, because now we have the technology of phones when we record things. But very few people make the extra effort to go out and save that individual or individuals, and that's you, Mr. Lutz, today. So we gladly thank you for stepping in. And I know your wife gave you a hard time when you first went in. You went home and says, "What in the world were you?" I didn't say exactly what she said. What are you doing? What in the world are you doing, going out and risking your life? But you did it. And we have a little resolution that I'd like to share with you that shares exactly what I said, Mr. Lutz. And this resolutions, of course, are the highest accommodation we can give you here in the Board of Supervisors. And I'd like to give you that at this time. And you can see up in the board, the things that happen. And my understanding is, Mr. Lutz said, you want to share a little bit of what you did? He's only 6'6", so. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I don't know what really to say. It was a moment in time that you got to just jump in and go. And
You were heading home at the time.
Yeah, his family's been, his Taft family and his family's been more than gracious to me and thankful. It's been a pretty surreal thing that's happened. And I'm just glad he's here to share moments with his family still.
Yes. So you work for TAF?
He works for TAF.
For TAF. You want to share a couple of words?
For Mr. Brian Lutz,
Let me
for Mr. Brian Lutz, there's not that many words you could say for him, but thank you very much. I'm here because of him.
And I see you have your wife here too.
With my wife, yes. And I want to thank the Taft family.
The Taft family, are they here? Yeah, we're here. Skinner, come over here, guy.
Yes.
Tony, where are you?
They're a family that you could count on, and Like I said, there's not many words you could say for this gentleman here.
And my understanding is that when you saw the head-on, you went into through the window and pulled him out. Is that the way?
Yeah, well, I ran over to the other gentleman and then ran over to him, and that's when the fire started kicking up and everybody started backing up, and because it was getting a little hotter than everybody wanted. And me and him were in it for the long haul, one way or another. We were either coming out or staying in. It was, and luckily everything worked out for the best for all of us.
And my understanding that your foot was stuck under the dashboard.
Yes, I was
And,
pinned.
and when you pulled him out, what you say? Do I still have my foot? Is that what happened?
Well, I looked down because I pulled on him a couple good times. I'm a bigger guy, so whenever I noticed that I was having to pull, I was like, this isn't going good. And all of a sudden he came loose and we both fell down on the ground and he was laying on me and I was just like, we're out. Yeah. And that was.
And you can see the accident, which just a moments later
Yeah, it was probably 30 seconds.
30 seconds
after he came out. And that was right then.
And Mr. Lutz, we want to thank your wife, for being here today, and the kids. Thank you for your husband. And again, I'm sure that you're very grateful that he saved your husband's life.
He's lucky to have this one.
And we have the boss
she's there for him.
From TAF, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I would say something. I know Butch, our safety
Butch,
officer.
I'm sorry, Butch. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, Butch.
Thank you so much.
Speak right to it.
Yeah, I would like to say that when this accident occurred, we needed a miracle, and Mr. Brian Lutz was that miracle. He was the superhero that aligned everybody, our moments in time. He's certainly a hero to the Taft family, and we also have an award for him as well. So
you want to read that? Or?
Yeah, actually, for Taft Electric, we recognize our best of the best employees as Top Guns, and a Top Gun employee by definition is that guy that goes over and above regularly, unsolicited. He's the guy you want on your side all the time, and in our opinion, Brian is a Top Gun. So we would like to give him an honorary Top Gun certificate, and
cool. Thank you.
You've earned it. Thank you so much.
Again, we want to thank you tremendously, for saving this young man's life. I know that the family's real happy, and I know your wife already forgave you for being a hero.
Yeah.
But we want to thank you tremendously. And let's take a photo for. You want to get on this side? This is going to be for No, you're right. This is going to be for you.
Where we go? Set this one down.
Right here. Right behind that. Well, let's put this one too. Let's go. I'll help.
I'll hold that one.
We'll have it. Hold on to this one.
Thank you, baby. I'm like, I don't know where to look.
Thank you, Liz. One more. Let's look over here.
And Amy. That's good.
Come on, Paula.
Get in there, Paula.
Mr. Lutz, my routes on Victoria Avenue.
I'm there for everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tony.
Thank you so much for doing that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Good man. Good man. Thank you. Thank you again to the Lutz family. And we have item 27. This is a receive and file County Ventura single audit report. And
Good morning, Chair Zaragoza, members of the board, Mr. Powers. For the record, my name is Jill Ward, Deputy Director for the Auditor Controller's Office. Certainly difficult to follow a couple of items like we've just had, but I'll do my best. I'm here this morning to ask that you receive and file the single audit report, which has been prepared in accordance with the Code of Federal Regulations, Part 200, Uniform Administrative Requirements, Cost Principles, and Audit Requirements for Federal Awards, commonly referred to as Uniform Guidance. The purpose of the report is to evaluate the financial management and accountability of the county's federal financial assistance programs. During fiscal 2016, the federal grant funds amounted to over $185 million. The single audit report does include 2 instances of noncompliance. The agency's responses and plans for corrective action are detailed in a separate corrective action plan. Also before you is the management letter, which includes recommendations for strengthening internal controls along with management's responses. Here with me today is Roger Alfaro, partner with Vavernick Trine Day and Company, the county's external auditors, to address the auditor's communications to those charged with governance.
Roger.
Members of the board, my name is Roger Alfaro. I'm a partner with Vavernick Trine Day and Company. And as stated in your agenda is the single audit report, as well as our required communications with respect to the audit for the fiscal year ended 2016. The single audit includes a schedule identifying all of the federal expenditures incurred by the county for the fiscal year ended June 30th, but it also includes our opinions as it relates to work that we performed with respect to the financial statements of the county, as well as our testing procedures over the expenditures related to certain federal programs for that same fiscal year. The single audit report includes a schedule of auditor's results or a summary of findings that states that we have issued an unmodified opinion on the county's financial statements, which is the highest level of assurance you can achieve in the financial statement audit. And it also comments on our testing with respect to internal controls. For the fiscal year ended June 30th, we issued a report noting no material weaknesses were identified in the course of our field work. And that summary of auditor's results also presents or states that no significant deficiencies in the internal control with respect to financial reporting were reported. With respect to federal programs, we have issued an unmodified opinion on compliance. That opinion states that the county complied in all material respects with respect to the terms and conditions of federal grants for the programs that were selected for the current year under audit. We did note that there were findings, one instance of noncompliance that was reported, as well as a significant deficiency in internal control related to certain federal programs. And again, the corrective action plan, which has been compiled by the county, identifies the corrective action to remedy those issues. And in subsequent audits, we will be following up on that corrective action and performing our procedures to make sure that those items are in fact implemented. With respect to other required qualitative aspects of the audit, we're pleased to report that we did not encounter any difficulties in the conduct of our fieldwork, nor did we have any disagreements with management with respect to accounting, auditing, or financial related matters. We appreciate the assistance of county staff in terms of providing us access to documentation, coordinating with departments to provide us access to various county staff members for the completion of our work. And I'd be happy to address any questions.
And Michael, we're working on that non-compliance issue that we'll take care of it for the next round.
Yeah, there's a detailed corrective action plan submitted. Yep.
Other than that, we had a pretty good audit then. We're in compliance. Any other questions? Supervisor Parks?
I appreciate the additional, the fact that you then review it later. I think it's
That's
always
right.
good to have that follow-up, so good process.
That's right.
Go ahead and move approval.
We've got a first and a second. Please vote. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you.
Excellent. Go ahead, Supervisor.
I just want to make a note that there was an article in the newspaper about this, and they were also, in the article, it was recommending the increase of funding for our auditor and controllers. Just wanted to make sure we also commented on that as
Thank
well,
you.
because it is a lot of work and a lot going on. So I just wanted to support you in that. Thank you.
Okay, Michael?
Just to reinforce Supervisor Long's point, at the mid-year adjustment letter, we did approve 2 additional positions for the auditor's office. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next item, thank you so much, Roger, and thank you. Our next item is a public hearing regarding adoption of an urgency ordinance extending the provisions of ordinance number 4507, PL 17008, an interim measure to regulate ancillary units, dwelling units in the non-coastal zone, and issuance of a written report. And this is a public hearing, so I'm going to open the public hearing. Go ahead.
Yes. Good morning, Chair Zaragoza, Mr. Powers, members of the board. My name is Jennifer Butler, and I'm a planner in the RME Planning Division. Today, I bring to your board Planning Division staff's recommendation to adopt an urgency measure that will extend the provisions of Ordinance 4507, the accessory dwelling unit interim ordinance, for an additional 10 months and 15 days. The proposed draft of the ADU interim ordinance extension is available as Exhibit 1 in your board letter packet. The ADU interim ordinance was an urgency measure that was adopted by your board on March 14, 2017. You will recall that planning staff brought this to you when new state law invalidated the former ordinance regulating accessory dwelling units, also called second dwelling units. The ADU interim ordinance modified the county's former second dwelling unit ordinance to the extent that was necessary to comply with state law, and it reenacted the regulatory protections for the Ojai traffic impact area and the Arroyo Santa Rosa Valley Tierra Rajada groundwater quality impact areas, as requested by your board. Additionally, your board directed that the minimum lot size requirements and unit size restrictions for accessory dwelling units located outside of the impact areas be revised in the ordinance as well. Accessory dwelling units in non-impact areas are now eligible up to 1,200 square feet, and the minimum lot size requirements were reduced from 10,000 to 9,000 square feet. These changes were adopted as directed and will be extended in the ordinance that is before you today. Since the ADU interim ordinance was adopted as an urgency measure, it took effect immediately upon adoption. According to state law, an interim ordinance adopted as an urgency measure is valid for an initial period of 45 days, but your board has authority with a 4/5 vote to extend those provisions for an additional 10 months and 15 days. In this case, this would be an extension until March 13th, 2018. I'm here today to request this extension to allow planning staff the time that is needed to prepare a permanent ordinance. If an extension is granted by your board today, planning staff will return to your board this year for a study session. The intent would be to receive direction on permanent regulations from your board before drafting text, and then we would go to Planning Commission for their review and recommendation. Finally, we would return to your board with a draft of the permanent ordinance for your consideration in early 2018. In order to grant the extension today, state law requires that your board receive and issue a written report that summarizes the measures taken to alleviate the conditions that led to the adoption of the interim ordinance. Planning staff prepared the written report and is attached as Exhibit 4 in your board letter packet. Some of the measures described in this report include speaking with and answering questions from interested property owners and developers on the new state law, and coordinating with county staff to address the impacts of the new state law in regulating accessory dwelling units. If your board chooses not to extend the interim ordinance today, then the county will utilize the state law to process accessory dwelling unit permits. But please note that state law does not provide any regulations that provide protection for the county's impact areas. And additionally, the state law will not allow for ADUs to exceed 1,200 square feet, whereas the county allows units to be up to 1,800 square feet on parcels that are 40 acres or greater and in non-impact areas. An extension to the interim ordinance is necessary to maintain regulating authority, have stricter standards for ADUs in the impact areas, while complying with the new state law and allowing staff time to develop a permanent ordinance. As such, planning staff recommends that your board adopt the ADU interim ordinance extension and take the actions listed on the first 2 pages in your board letter. This concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to take any questions your board may have.
Thank you. Any questions? Supervisor Long and then Parks.
Yes, first of all, I wanted to say thank you very much for not making any changes. I appreciate that. The information was given to us in a good time. And I also appreciate what you're saying about making sure we reach out to those in regards to the state law, not just our ordinance. I think it is important that we don't just look at our ordinance, but make sure that we're encompassing all and that we're getting the feedback from our constituents, as well as our planning commission and planning department. So I appreciate that, and I would support that. So thank you.
Supervisor Parks.
I was wondering about whether it's going to go through the max. I guess it will go to the planning commission, correct?
Correct.
But the municipal advisory councils, I think, would like to have the information if we could have a concerted effort to provide them information on this and they can have input on it. I think that'd be helpful. And I know the planning department has wonderful tools available to give a better idea about what the impact would be in those areas. So that would be helpful also to bring.
And I agree too. You know, our MAC would like to listen to the presentation too. I think it's an excellent idea. Yeah. This is a public hearing, and I don't have any speakers, so I'm going to close the public hearing. What's the pleasure of the board?
Great presentation. I'll move approval.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and that's approved.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I just have a question. I mean, our next item is scheduled to be 30 minutes. That's receive and file a report on community health assessment. And I know we've got recipients out in the lobby for the Earth Day Awards that will be on in 5 minutes. I don't know if there's some way we can juggle that, but I don't think we want to put all those recipients waiting until
How about
noon. And he said he's okay with that. But,
Rigo says okay.
the question is, what do we do for 5 minutes? Or do we
Leroy, we got 4 minutes to go. For the 11:30? Yeah, we're okay. Okay, so then we'll go ahead and take item 31. This is receive and file a presentation of the 2017 Earth Day Awards. Supervisor Parks?
Do have a PowerPoint on this item. I believe if we, not that one, if we combine all the years that we've been doing the Earth Day Awards, Supervisor Bennett did, I think, of about 4 years worth, and then I office kind of took over, and we've done 3. So this is our 7th year of doing Earth Day Awards, and here we are in 2017. And I thank my assistant Denise for helping to coordinate, and all the supervisors' offices for chiming in with their nominees. And our awardees are here this morning. Earth Day will be celebrated this Saturday, April 22nd. It was established in 1970 to remind people of their shared responsibility to be good stewards of the earth. And our Board of Supervisors takes this opportunity to honor our local environmental champions. Congratulations to those, and for your sustainable practices and spreading those to others. Again, I just want to thank the board for this. And we were thinking how we would do it then is go by district. And so I'll turn it over to Supervisor Bennett so he can do his for Supervisor District 1, and we have the slide up for that.
Thank you very much. I'm really proud to offer this Earth Day Award to the Matilah Coalition, and we have some members that have come, and so I think it's going to be nice if you just go ahead and approach the dais right now. If all of you would come on up, that way you can be properly recognized. So the Matilah Coalition is an alliance of community groups, businesses, and individuals committed to the environmental restoration of the Ventura River watershed. Since 2000, the Matilah Coalition has worked to achieve the following vision: a free-flowing Ventura River from the mountains to the sea, a thriving population of steelhead trout in its waters, a healthy native ecosystem, a wide sandy beach along the coast, and opportunities for public enjoyment, education, and recreation for current and future generations. The Matilahaw Coalition and its members have played an integral role in the multi-agency Matilahaw Dam Ecosystem Restoration Project and steadfastly advocates for an ecologically sensitive, cost-effective, and timely removal of Matilahaw Dam. The coalition has helped lead and maintain the Friends of the Ventura River Group, which was responsible for the development of the Ventura River Parkway Vision and Trail Guide. Current core members of the coalition include Paul Jenkins from Surfrider Foundation and founder and coordinator of the Matilahaw Coalition, Hans Cole, Patagonia Incorporated, Candace Menigan, CalTrout, Matt Stoker, Stoker Ecological, Diane Underhill, and Kathy Bremer with Friends of the Ventura River. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to present this, and Hans and Paul, I'm going to ask you if you have anything that you'd like to say about the Matilahaw Coalition project, and certainly we're all excited about the fact that on our advanced calendar is the 65% design for Matilahaw Dam, the new Matilahaw Dam removal project. That'll come to us in a few more weeks. So we'd love to hear from you while I bring this down. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Bennett, for recognizing the work that the Matilahaw Coalition has done over the past 2 decades now. Behind me are some of our current core active members in the efforts that we've been undertaking. And, you know, there could have been another 20 people that I could have invited here today, because it's really been a group effort. And just as the Matilahaw project has been a multi-agency, multi-stakeholder process, our coalition also has been able to bring together different expertise and different resources to lend, you know, the perspective that it's needed to get the project to where it is today. And then as far as the Ventura River Parkway goes, I just wanted to recognize Kathy and Diane, because they were integral in helping organize our Friends of the Ventura River efforts. And we were able to get the Ventura River Parkway Trail recognized as a national recreation trail. So with that, I'll stop, but thank you very much.
Thank you.
I think I'm okay. Well, I'll just say briefly, just thanks so much again from all the stakeholders, from the business community, from Patagonia. We've been involved in this project for a long time, and appreciate so much the honor today. So thanks.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Turn around for a picture. I would like, if you shot it from there and we were right here, and you guys just turned around, all right? Come on in here.
I'm next, yeah, I just go down the districts 2 and then 3 and 4.
Thank you. Then we have Supervisor Parks.
Congratulations. For District 2, I have selected Dr. Sean Anderson. So, Sean, if you'd like to come up. Dr. Sean Anderson is a professor and incoming chair of the Department of Environmental Science and Resource Management at Cal State University Channel Islands, with a new restoration curriculum that emphasizes community service and includes a course where students travel to New Orleans, Louisiana, to examine causes of wetland loss and policy failures, conducts post-Hurricane Katrina and now post-Deepwater Horizon environmental impact assessments. They also help rebuild homes and install community food gardens. His research focuses on restoring degraded ecosystems and improving the management of the coastal zone. And his large-scale ecological restoration projects across California, Louisiana, and even eastern Turkey include wetland and riparian systems. He also oversees student projects on cutting-edge concerns such as microbead pollution, which he can tell us a little about. He has been awarded the Maximus Outstanding Faculty of the Year Award, and his team was awarded the Whitley Gold Award for International Conservation for their work in eastern Turkey. Dr. Anderson created NCEAS National Working Group on the ecotoxicology of the Gulf oil spill to investigate the long-term ecological consequences of the largest marine oil spill in U.S. history. Most recently, he is spearheading a new consortium for the use of remotely piloted systems to improve the management of coastal systems. Dr. Anderson also serves on the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy Advisory Committee and carpools with me to those meetings. And he's also a California's Sustainable Seafood Initiative panel and the Council on Ocean Affairs, Science, and Technology. And I'll congratulate you and bring you down your award. And then if you'd like to make some comments, we'd love to hear.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for this award, you guys. This is very generous and very kind. I'll just say real quickly, when we moved down here from the San Francisco Bay Area to help start this university, Cal State Channel Islands, about 15 years ago, I remember a parent came into my office and said, I'd been at these big famous places before, and they said, why'd you come here? We don't understand why you came here. And I said, I couldn't believe it. What do you mean? Why wouldn't I come here? Last week, we had a session with new incoming freshmen. We had 150 freshmen in that room that are interested in coming to CSU Channel Islands, specifically because of the programs we've built. And a lot of that support has come from the forward-thinking plans and projects and implementation things that we've done from you guys. And so I want to say thank you so much for that. And I'm very proud to be here, and we are very proud to be partners with you guys in making this place better and stronger. And so thank you.
Thank you, Doctor.
Love this slide with
studying underwater. That's you have to do it somehow.
Reading a book.
That's right. Kids don't know what those are. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Supervisor Long.
Thank you very much. It is my great honor to present this award to the Port of Hueneme Oxnard Harbor District. My team and I put a lot of names in the hat. There's a lot going on in District 3, but this one won. This is great. I just wanted to touch on Jason Hodge, who's the president commissioner. He had an article in the newspaper, and it was really hits the points. I mean, currently Port Hueneme employs over 2,500 people with direct jobs that touch over 13,600 trade-related jobs. They also bring in $9 million in tax dollars, which is vital for our public service. However, that's not all that the port does. Today, we honor you because of your shoreside power program, which will, over the next 30 years, promise to reduce particulate matter by 92%, nitrogen oxides by 98%, and carbon dioxides by 55%. And this is also touted by the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District. And so what they're doing is when the vessels shore up, they're able to turn off and go completely on electric power. That is very much the essence of Earth Day and saving the environments and going outside the box and thinking. I know that you have also more than just that. You're encouraging electric vehicles on site. And then you're also, another priority is your ecological sustainability and wetland native species protection and working with associations on that. So if you could, Vice President Commissioner Marianne Rooney and Kristen Dekas, CEO and Port Director, thank you very much. As I come down to be honored to present you this award, if you could talk a little bit about your sustainability program. I would love people to understand that you're not just economy here, that you're all encompassing. So thank you.
Welcome, Marianne and Kristen.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Long, for this great honor. We are very excited to be strong partners with the county and with the Air Quality Protection District. I mean, everything that the county does, we take to heart. Outside of being an economic engine for this county, we hold environmental stewardship extremely as a high priority for us. We develop policies surrounding that. We have practices in place. Ms. Dekas drove the hybrid car down here today. I mean, it's all about who we are. So we're excited for this award. The Shoreside Power Project was an extremely large project that we didn't have funding for. And so we pieced together with the support that the county and a lot of other agencies worked together with us to pay for this amazing project. So on behalf of the entire Board of Harbor Commissioners, our customers who are doing the great work of plugging in and retrofitting their vessels as well, our great staff at the Harbor District, on behalf of all of those folks, we are so honored to accept this award and appreciate the recognition.
You know, I think Supervisor Long forgot to mention one thing, the Banana Festival.
Banana Festival. That's it. Come on out to the Banana Festival end of September. Thank you. Thank you.
I would just only add to what the commissioner said, that every day for us is a green day. It's not just in celebration of Earth Day. And in fact, to that end, we recently joined something called Green Marine, where we're getting a third-party validation to really, somewhat like an Energy Star, validate that what we're doing is in the best interest of the environment and we're implementing best management practices. So again, thank you for this honor. We want to continue to live up to your expectations.
And thank you for the good work, too, that you provide for the community.
Thank you.
Excellent, excellent work. Thank you. Thank you.
And then District 4, Supervisor Foy's district, and he's providing the award to the Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District. I know we have Mr. Mark Johnson here. Unfortunately, Supervisor Foy, I believe, had to go to a funeral, so he's not here today. So he asked if I would present this to the Rancho Simi Rec and Park District. And I know Vice Chair of the Board, Mr. Johnson, is here. He's a retired Simi Unified math teacher, right? And first joined the board of the Rancho Simi Rec and Park District back in 1999. Rancho Simi Recreation and Park District has been active with several projects that preserve the natural landscape and habitat of the area and encourage residents to enjoy the beautiful parks and outdoor recreation in Simi Valley. The district recently renovated the 3.2-acre lagoon at Rancho Simi Community Park, installing a new clay liner to reduce water seepage and conserve water, and restoring the islands which represent habitat for waterfowl and other important species. Newly opened Runkle Canyon Park features panoramic views, serves as a trailhead to hiking trails, and will connect with the district's walking and biking trails through the city. And the district recently, acquired Alamos Canyon, which was identified by the Nature Conservancy and the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy as critical for its value as a wildlife corridor linkage between the Santa Monica Mountains and the Sierra Madre Mountains. The district also completed improvements to the Arroyo Simi Greenway Trail, and we are all green with envy on that one, a multi-use trail that provides a great alternative to automobile transportation and connects people with nature. And this runs along the watershed channel there, the flood control channel. It's dedicated also, in addition to all these things, Rancho Simi Recreation Park District constructed a 3-acre portion of the Shumash Park, which features play areas, basketball court, and fitness area to encourage outdoor exercise activities, and has views of the valley as well as interpretive signs, and explains Native American history in the area. So I'll come down and present this to you, Mr. Johnson, if you'd like to make some comments.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Park.
Welcome, Mr. Johnson.
I'd like to thank you, all of you here, because Los Alamos Canyon, as we have it up there, would not have, been fruition without your guys' help. It's just such a great thing that the county, the cities, and park districts, and independent districts can work together to preserve open space for everybody. That's one of our main mantras, I guess you'd say, for the park district, is preserve open space for the next millennium to come. And I would, on behalf of the board, I'd like to thank you, because a lot of these projects, you look up there, has been with your help. And we do appreciate that immensely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Brian will take a picture. You need to be in the picture. So you show your daughters,
My math teacher.
Thank you. Thank you, board members. It's my honor to call the recipient for the 2017 Earth Day Award, Nancy Peterson from Oxnard. For decades, Nancy Peterson has championed the efforts in her community to protect beaches and wetlands and to expand the benefits of community gardens. She's helped start a school garden at Elm School Street after-school program, and then she moved to Harrington Elementary School, where she worked with the children there. She also worked with Gene Harris and the Nature Conservancy, Coastal Conservancy, to set up the first efforts to support the preservation of Ormond Beach in 2002 in Oxnard. She then began the 10-year effort to clean up the degraded wetlands at Ormond Point, bringing in volunteers from all over the county to clean up the area. Nancy received the 2013 Distinguished Service Award from the UC Masters Gardens for her efforts to bring school gardens, multiple programs to Ormond Beach and other projects, and helping to establish area that hosts the Master Garden Program at the Hansen Trust farmland. She has been an inspiration to those who continue to fight for more parks and open space in Ventura County, and her belief that the beach and all public lands should be available to all residents of the county. Additionally, her husband's here with them, and he bakes some really good cookies, too. I hope he brought some cookies. I'll go down there. Nancy?
Oh, this is such a great honor. Every project that my husband and I have been involved in has been a joint project. It's involved the county, the cities, it's involved schools. We're all one big family, and we all work together, and you'll have to forgive me, I'm getting laryngitis, but we have all been such a big family that works together. This is such a special county. You go other places and you don't see the cooperation, you don't see everyone working for the same great goal. So thank you.
Would it be possible that we have a picture with everybody and the supervisors for all the Earth Day awardees?
You got it? Oh, yay!
They didn't leave.
There we go. Sorry, I'm not here then. I didn't know we didn't go.
Wide angle.
Wide angle, yeah.
Do we just pan it? Go high.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Photo credit of those beautiful lupins and farmland was Bill Nash, I believe. Beautiful photo.
Thank you, Bill. Our next item is item 30. It's to receive and file a report regarding the community health assessment, and that's Rigo and Dr. Levin.
Bring up the PowerPoint, please. So I'll start off and then turn it over to Dr. Levin towards the end. While we're getting set up, our community health assessment report is literally in being printed right now, but I was able to get our great team at GSA Graphics and Business Support to print us a few advanced copies. So I have 6 I'd like to share with the board. Mr. Powers. All right. So good morning. Rigo Vargas, Public Health Director for the Healthcare Agency. It's a pleasure to be here to share with you, as I just mentioned, our recently developed Community Health Assessment Report. And as you can see, as part of the subtitle is all goes towards the effort of striving to make our county the healthiest, not only in the state, but in the nation. For trying to advance. Which way do I go? There. Oop, there we go. Okay. So just a quick reference to the healthiest county, state, and nation. As I mentioned when I was here before your board for the National Public Health Week proclamation, we've adopted this vision, really we call it a vision statement. It's also a broad goal to be the healthiest county in the state and the nation, and it goes along with state and national efforts of many organizations trying to be the healthiest by 2030. That goes along with having a healthier generation, but also to help improve the health of our state, given that among developed countries we spend the most on healthcare, but yet we don't have the best health outcomes. So we're trying to change that at the local, state, and national level. In terms of this report, just a little bit of background, it's one of 3 required reports that our accreditation body, the Public Health Accreditation Board, expects of accredited local public health departments. We previously published our strategic plan about 2 years ago, and that was based on results of our previous community health assessment. And you'll see their copy of it on the right hand. And that's the face that you have now of our new community health assessment report. The 3rd report that will be coming up in the summer, it's called the Community Health Improvement Plan. And that takes into consideration the results of the needs assessment and really works in partnership with community organizations to come up with an improvement plan for the health of the community. Our strategic plan first, this graph and slide draws attention to, in our strategic plan, we first drew attention to the fact that in order to have a healthy individual, you need to not only treat the whole person, but really work with everybody around that individual, the whole person and the entire family, but not even just then or there. We really need to look at the health of the social environment, the physical environment, and only then can we accomplish a healthy community. And special attention is there drawn to the green onion, if you will, that layer, the healthy social and physical environment, because that's really where the largest factors that impact health are found there, such as housing, transportation, planning efforts, and economic opportunity. And so that's where increasingly your public health department is engaging in partnerships with community organizations and stakeholders to try to address health in a holistic way. And only then we feel that approaching health in this broad sense could we impact population health outcomes. Real quick, in terms of our process that we engaged to come up with this report, we're following a standardized 9-step process that an association of community health improvement and planning developed, and so it really we followed this process, the step to a T, in order to assure that we are consistent with other community health assessments that are being done, especially in our local hospitals. As you may know, not-for-profit local hospitals are required to come up with their own community health assessment reports, and so we've met with all the local hospital representatives and aligned our community health assessment and improvement planning process to have the same steps, and soon enough we expect to be on the same timeline as our healthcare partners. And step 6 and 7 is where we are currently. We're in communicating the results of our report, and then 7 and 8 is when we're going to come up with a community health improvement plan. So to start off, I'd like to highlight a couple of demographic information that's in the report Then I'll highlight a few of the socioeconomic status indicators, such as educational attainment and poverty. And then we'll have a few slides on some topic health issues, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Levin. So first, in terms of demographics, you see this is the latest demographic profile in terms of ethnicity for our county. You see that the Latino community is almost in par with white non-Latino community at 43 and 45%, and the rest of the population is made up of various other ethnic racial groups, make up the rest of the 12%. So this is current. In the same California Department of Finance projects that by the year 2060, this is going to be the expected picture in terms of demographics for our county. You see that in the green bar is a current or a 2016 ethnic makeup, and the blue bars indicates the projected ethnic makeup by that year. And you see that the trend is for the Latino community population size to go up, whereas the Anglo population to go down. And it is by 2060 that Latinos are projected to be the largest ethnic group in California and in the locally in this county. And you see that the other groups are expected to stay fairly the same.
Supervisor Long.
So you're saying we'll be at 1 million by 2060?
Yes, that's Department of Finance projections based on current birth trends and population indicators.
For the county.
For the whole county, yes.
Okay.
And that's a typo there. It's by 2060. Sorry.
Yeah.
2060. That's a
One zero too many.
long ways from now. Okay, a little bit in terms of birth trend. So even though we are projected to hit the 1 million mark by 2060, really it's more by natural birth trends and having in Ventura County a younger population, and not so much by live births. Our actual live births or births in this county have gone down dramatically in the last 10 years. It's about a 60% drop from the over 12,000 births that we had in the year 27 to now in 2016, the average is more closer to 9,500 births. So the birth rate is going down, but I'll also like to draw attention in this same graph to the red markers, and that's the teen birth rate. That is also experienced a dramatic decrease, and that's a testament to the good work that goes on in the healthcare agency, public health department, and various organizations that work to delay pregnancies in moms, but also have healthy birth outcomes for all families.
Do you also work with the Boys and Girls Club? Because I know they've worked pretty diligently in that too.
Yes, a lot of the Boys and Girls Clubs are addressing healthy living activities and helping children with sexual health as well.
Thank you.
And are you seeing that the rate of births for adolescents and teens is declining faster than the general population?
Yes, I believe that's the, let's see, I have it in here, the percentage. The larger birth rate is a 63% drop, and the teen birth drop is 21% over the 10 years.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
That's good news.
Yes. So 20% drop is good. Okay, so now in terms of the actual contents of the Community Health Assessment Report, real quick, just selected some slides. As you can see from the report before you, it has a lot more information in there, and I encourage you to go through it and invite us to share at your any of your constituency groups would like to share this information. But one of the things that we made sure that we did with this Community Health Assessment Report is to engage the community, ask the residents what they feel, in this case, makes a healthy community. And we surveyed over, actually close to 1,000 residents, and about 65% were responded in English, and about 35% of those almost 1,000 respondents responded in Spanish. And here's their top 5 definitions of what makes a healthy community. You see that across the board, access to good quality health care was the top issue, but and there was good consistency with the rest of the items there. It's good to know that because we are trying to draw more attention to the social determinants of health, that our respondents included things like good schools and quality education and safe neighborhoods and the clean environment, all contributing towards a healthy community. So I think we're getting the message
And-
across that it takes a whole community to create
In
community
regard, I
health.
just want to share with the board that you're doing an excellent job in the Colonia area with the schools and the garden you have there in Colonia. That's really helpful.
Thank you.
And
We
the kids love that.
Yeah, and we want to expand our opportunities
That's
to,
right.
to promote healthy eating, active living, wherever there's green space available. We like to support organizations such as that in the city of Oxnard to promote other community gardens. Yes.
Can I get clarification? You used the word issue. Are these current issues that they're seeing, or these are healthy community that they would like to see, or are they currently having?
This,
I was
it's a great question. The
concerned.
actual issues is the next slide. This is what do you think makes a healthy community? So what do they think contributes to our healthy community?
Okay,
And
thank you.
yes.
It's not issues, it's just what they
Yes.
think. Okay.
Now, issues or problems are more in this slide is what do you think are the top three most important health problems in our community? And then we aggregated them and had a 5 for each of the 3 breakout groups. And you can see that cancer and diabetes are the top for all groups, all respondents in terms of health problems, health issues in our community. But then there is consistency in 3, 4, and 5. For most groups, the only thing for the Spanish respondents, they chose violence, domestic violence in particular, as one of the top health problems in their community. But you see still that good paying jobs or lack of good paying jobs is important. Mental health issues, child abuse and neglect, these are all very important health issues to the respondents. I have 2 slides just highlighting some of the health data in our community health assessment. This one is on children. The next one is more on the older population. Again, just to draw your attention to some of the data that's in the report. This one is a percent of 5th graders that are a healthy weight or underweight, and the most recent data that we have from the California Department of Education. This is an indicator of obesity and overweight. So this is more presented on the positive. So, for example, in Ventura County, an average of 60% of 5th graders are at a healthy weight. But if you turn it around, that means that 40% are at an unhealthy weight, meaning either they're overweight or obese. And you see that there's great differences in the school districts, ranging from almost 50% being at an unhealthy weight in the Oxnard School District, yet more in the East County, in Conejo Valley, for example, in Oak Park, whereas there's still unhealthy weight at 15 and 30%, it's not as high as the 50% in the Santa Clara Valley and Oxnard Plains.
Can I hit a point, just using my old hat, that also has to do with funding of the PE programs? And some of the school districts have been able to utilize funds from their PTAs and so forth to provide PE programs to keep the kids active and so forth, and other districts haven't been able to do that. So that also correlates to some of that.
One of the things, to add a little bit to that, is the education of the grocery stores that are nearby those neighborhoods.
Yes.
I think that's important that we,
Yeah. And our public health department is doing more and more and reaching out and working with our retail stores. Our WIC program in particular, leadership of WIC is here, and they do outreach and education to the retailers to promote healthier food options, both fresh and available, affordable products. All right. So we go from youth to now more of the older population in terms of those that have Medicare, some of the top health issues affecting older adults. And you see there that the main ones include hypertension. The second one, hyperlipemia, is really a high cholesterol. Third is arthritis. Then some of the heart disease-related conditions round out the top 10. One common thing, though, in pretty much all of these items here, they're related to healthy eating and active living and early detection and early screening to be able to prevent or control these conditions. So again, a lot of the heart disease, diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol are things that can be controlled with healthy eating and being more active, and also early detection. Now I'm going to, our community health assessment report, the last slides draw attention to life expectancy and premature death. This is a new feature of our community health assessment report. Our epidemiologist, Erin Slack, that's out on maternity leave, she just had her second baby last week. She did a great job in not only helping me put this report together, but also in doing the detailed analysis of life expectancy. So I think in the past I've highlighted that there's great differences in life expectancy. One of the reasons why we draw attention to life expectancy is that it's one indicator of the health of a community, and this is a standardized outcome that at the national and local levels we track life expectancy. And so this draws attention to the fact that the U.S. life expectancy is 78.7 years. In Ventura County, we live in a beautiful community, and with all the great efforts that are undertaken here, our life expectancy is 82.
That's very significant, Rico, you know,
Yeah.
because the weather, the good water, or Dr. Levin working with us? Or
It's all of the above. It's all your good efforts in terms of promoting.
Dr. Levin's responsible for that.
Yeah. All the good efforts that are taken both by our county family and our community partners, yes, climate and everything. But so we are fortunate to live in paradise, if you will, but there are great differences in life expectancy within our community. You see that, as is the national trend, females have a higher life expectancy, but in terms of comparing zip codes, you see that 93022, which is, I believe, the Oak Park area, has the lowest. Oakview, sorry, yes, Oakview has the lowest life expectancy compared to, I believe that's Westlake, Thousand Oaks area, 91361, having the higher life expectancy. And this slide, although busy, I just wanted to draw the attention that our community health assessment report, whenever possible, has the detail in there by either zip code or city for your review at a later time. And there is a 12-year difference between the highest and the lowest zip code.
Did you find a parallel, I think, last time you did this with
That's right.
education?
Yes.
And life expectancy?
And poverty as well in particular.
And poverty and education with life expectancy.
Yes, yes. And that's really why we focus so much on social determinants of health, because improving educational attainment and outcomes and increasing the social mobility or economic mobility of communities helps in the long run for their health.
Education can help people out of poverty, and then that
Exactly.
can increase their life.
Yes, that's all interrelated, definitely.
Minority status also?
Yes. And that's all in the report. So a little bit in terms of the premature death, a couple of slides here is overall in this analysis that our epidemiologists did, we looked at premature death in terms of using the tool that the World Health Organization developed and looking at exactly when someone died, and then with regard to comparing it to their life expectancy, and then it added up all those years. And in our county, it's estimated that over 105,000 years of life was lost due to premature death, and that was the average per year in that 3-year span. So a lot of potential in terms of quality of years because people are dying prematurely. In a few slides we'll show with some things that can be prevented, like accidents and diseases that can be controlled and also prevented.
And also, the United States doesn't fare that well either overall, and compared to other similar economic, demographic.
That's right. So
countries.
yes, our overall our life expectancy as a nation is not as good as other developed countries, even though, as I mentioned earlier, we spend the most per capita in terms of the healthcare system.
That's a long story right there, right?
Yeah. This slide draws attention to the actual years of life lost per 100,000 residents in our county for that same 3-year period. The numbers in parentheses for each of the top 10 leading causes of death are the leading cause of death. So, for example, all cancers and heart disease are the top 2 leading causes of death, and they also happen to be the leading cause of years of life lost. So, a lot of potential years life lost in folks that are suffering from cancer and heart disease. And so those are the top 2 for those 2 things. But interestingly enough, you see that accidents, they're the 6th leading cause of death, but the 3rd leading cause of preventable years of life lost. And so, that stands to reason that a lot of accidents can be prevented, and it involves younger folks. And that's compared to, for example, Alzheimer's disease is making up actually not improving, is going up the ranks in the wrong direction of becoming one of the top leading causes of death in our county. It's number 4, but in years of life lost, because it happens towards later years, is not so much it's I think 7th in terms of years of life lost. So again, this graph is a little busy, but I think it's very important because it draws a comparison between leading causes of death and premature death and years lost, and also that cancer is now our leading cause of death, overtaking coronary heart disease. Lastly, I just have a couple of slides, one on high school graduation, and then a couple on poverty, and then I'll turn it over to Dr. Levin. So our report also includes some detailed analysis of the social determinants of health that impact the health of the community. As we were mentioning, one of them is education. Education is very highly correlated with better health outcomes. And so we want to increase not only high school graduations, but college attainment for all of our youth. And this is some of the latest information that we have in terms of that the overall high school graduation in our county is at about 84. I believe the most recent data is now at 86. So we're improving in high school graduation rates, even as a county. The white students and Asian students have higher than average high school graduation rates, which is great. But the Latino community, Latino students at about 80% have have a lower than average high school graduation rate. But the most recent one, this is 2014-15 data. 2015-16 data just was released, and the overall rate, as I mentioned, is 86 now. And for Latinos, they also have a slight decrease to now about 80% of Latino students are graduating. So work to be done, but at least it's in the upward trend. The last slides here are on poverty, again, because poverty is just so important to the health of individuals in the community. I just want to draw your attention to a couple things that are more in detail in the report. One is, as you know, there's different measures of poverty. And so using the conservative federal official poverty measure, that puts our county at 11% poverty rate. But if we adopt or examine the data by the California poverty measure, that takes more into account the living conditions in California, we're at about 20%. But the most recent measure that I believe is a more accurate measure of poverty is the United Ways of California came out with the real cost measure. And that report puts that 1 out of 4 residents in our county is living in poverty. And that takes into account specific things such as childcare costs, cost of housing, cost of education. And so that's why I believe that's even a more accurate measure of poverty. This map just showcases a little bit in some of the larger communities in our county what the poverty rates are for that real cost of measure that I mentioned from United Way. And so you see that in the Santa Paula, Fillmore, and Oxnard areas is higher poverty rates than in the East County, but even in the East County at 14 and 18%, that's
Supervisor
still high.
Long.
Supervisor Long?
You grouped Oxnard and Fort Wayne together?
No, we don't. This is using the real cost measure, and one of the drawbacks of using the real cost measure, even though it's more accurate and realistic, the sample size is smaller, so they aggregated the numbers of the communities this way.
You normally do that, right? Normally.
The federal and the state measure of poverty, that one we can find poverty rates, and I believe some of that is on the report, even by zip code and by city, whereas by the real cost measure, it's aggregated.
Thank you.
Making a further connection between poverty status and education, this slide, there was a error in the heading in the original one, but basically it's poverty status by educational attainment, and you see the stark differences of that there is much greater poverty in each of our cities for those that have less than a high school graduation. However, if you compare that to the golden yellow bar, those in our county that have a bachelor's degree or higher experience much lower poverty rates. And so the key message here is, of course, stay in school and graduate from college, and your chances of living in poverty would be greatly diminished, and also your chances of having positive health outcomes will be greatly improved. So now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Levin for a few more slides to highlight the county health rankings that the Ventura County Star recently covered. And take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Rigo. Chairperson Zaragoza, members of the board, and Mr. Powers. I'm Robert Levin, health officer. First, I'd like to talk about our county health rankings, which came out about a week ago. We are ranked in our state as 10th out of 57 counties in our health outcomes. Health outcomes can be considered synonymous with health results or effects. So these are things like premature death and poor or fair health as measured by a people's perception of their own health, low birth weight, and poor physical and mental health days. The health factors are really health conditions that affect our health. And we are 11th out of 57 counties. These include health behaviors such as smoking, alcohol use, exercise, and eating habits. The clinical care includes, of course, medical care and screening that we provide for people. Social and economic factors include family and friends and support that you have, decent jobs, being able to save for retirement. And then physical environment includes things like safe neighborhoods and clean air and water. An example of one of the programs that we've recently launched that encouraged healthy behaviors is Steps for School. Over 200 students from 5 elementary schools competed. These included Briggs, Laguna Vista, Loma Vista, Los Primeros, and Somas. The winner, students walked, ran, and played for points over a 5-day period, and even things like doing housework were included as counted steps. The winner, the school with the highest average number of steps or points, was Los Primeros School of Sciences and Arts. And the student who walked the most, I would love to mention the name of, but it's not going to be unveiled until Thursday. She was from Loma Vista Elementary School. In the school that won the most, each student averaged 60,952 steps, or 17 miles over 5 days, which is about 3 miles plus per day. But the individual student who won, she walked 73,500 steps over 5 days, and her walking days are over because she won a bicycle. We at Public Health are taking our self-proclaimed challenge of becoming the healthiest county in the nation by 2030 seriously. But how do we do this? We have to look at the many factors that influence health and try to maximize them, make them more favorable to our well-being. The broad areas that affect our health include, again, the clinical care we receive, social and economic forces, and our physical environment. Each of us knows a few of these factors. One person might know or feel that planting 1 million more trees in our county would be a good thing. Another might suggest that we should avoid siting new school construction against agricultural land. Keeping our county a green county, an agricultural county, a forested county is also of great benefit. We need to continue to renovate our city centers, make our cities more walkable, lay sidewalks where there are none, and build more bicycle-friendly streets. We need to address food deserts and increase the proportion of our agricultural produce that's sold here within Ventura County and Los Angeles County. These things decrease energy utilization, carbon emissions, and time from harvest to consumption. Another new idea is to start what's called a walking school bus. Instead of taking the bus to school, kids walk along, gathering together, other kids as they go, on their way. There is safety in numbers, and the children are getting needed exercise. Many of these things are being addressed by federal and state law, like the creation and maintenance of our park system. Los Angeles is working to control its air pollution, which affects our air quality. Our county, your board, has passed a Health in All Policies initiative. Many individual changes can come together to make us the healthiest county in the nation, but we have to see the big view of our county. To see our entire county all in one field of vision from the air, from our borders with Santa Barbara, Los Angeles, and Kern counties, You have to go up 67,000 feet into the air above our heads. That's why I call this the 67,000-foot initiative. I see it happening in 2 steps. In the first step, we collect all of the ideas from anyone who wants to participate throughout our county of all the changes and improvements that could make life here more healthful. The list will be edited and consolidated by the Public Health Department. Second, agency and department heads, business leaders, educators, builders, philanthropists, innovators, elected officials, healthcare officials, and others will all come together and work their way through the list. Groups of senior citizens who get together each day to exercise will say, why don't we take on supervising the walking school bus project in our neighborhood? We'll get our exercise and the kids will get theirs and be kept safe. Someone else might look at the list and say, hey, I know about a state program that provides trees for free to anyone who wants to plant them. Another obstacle overcome. Coincidence and collaboration won't solve every one of our promising goals. I have confidence, though, that a group of well-meaning people can do a lot to improve the quality of life that we live in our county. I'm certain that people with skills will step forward to volunteer their services when needed, and that philanthropists will contribute when they see a project that inspires them. So we hope you will support us in our 67,000-foot initiative and make Ventura County the healthiest county in the nation. We hope you will pass a resolution that will support and encourage all of the residents in our county to participate. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Levin. Rigo, any questions? Excellent presentation. That's really good information. Rigo, any final thoughts?
No, just to, again, thank you for the opportunity to share our community health assessment report. Please let us know if we can present at any of your meetings or require any additional analysis. And then also to draw your attention to our data dashboard that is maintained current with all the latest demographic information. Our reports are found there. And that's it. I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions?
I did, but it's assumed. Basically, this is fabulous work, good information. And my question was just the follow through with what do we do with this information? Not just talk, but the procedures that we put in place. Yeah. I get concerned when I hear from certain areas in my district, such as example of healthcare, that they're not being reached. It could be a perception, the healthcare could be there or not. That's to be debated on one side or the other. But to make sure that those services are available, and if in certain areas what we do normally isn't working, what things are we going to do to make sure they do work? You said that the Latino base is going to be growing. Do they have different needs than the rest of the base? So I just want to ask those questions. I'm not stating what you have to do, but I want to make sure that the needs of our community are met. So if you're talking about healthcare and so forth, I just want to make sure that we're looking at our programs and making sure we address the change and how we can approach that.
Thank you for those comments, Supervisor Long. Yes, we plan to have our community health improvement plan developed by the summer, where we're going to be proactive and engage stakeholders and leaders and children in terms of identifying the key issues in our report to then have an improvement plan. So we're going to make solid steps and plans to improve the health of the community, very targeted with outreach efforts, and also by engaging a variety of sectors, like Dr. Levin pointed out, in terms of the 67,000-foot initiative and any other initiatives that we have. We really, as a health department and even as a healthcare agency, we can't solve all the health issues without extending the partnership and engaging the community, and so we're prepared to do that.
And along with that, I'm trying to be elected to this board. I was told, county has nothing to do with education. You've proved it wrong, that we have everything to do with education because we have to partner with them. Because the better outcomes on education, the better our community is. So I want to make sure that we are partnering with the Ventura County Office of Education and making sure that with the community to really improve things. So thank you.
We have a very close relationship with the County Office of Education, and we work with them frequently on many projects.
Thank you.
Let me share something with you with Rigo and Dr. Levin. I see you in every event that we have out. If it's Earth Day, if it's a MAC or whatever, you guys are there. And if it's a church event, you guys are there. Over in Oxnard, I know you do a lot of work. I know that you talk to different individuals, you talk to the schools, you talk to the teachers, you talk to families. And Supervisor, they do a lot of work. I know in Oxnard, because every place that I go, I don't care where it is, your people are there. And I just want to commend you for that. And I think the more we do, the better it is. But that's just good data that we all need. But I just want to commend you on, because in my district, your people are there 100%. And they turn around and they're there, turn this way and they're there. So I commend you for that, and it's excellent presentation too. Thank you. Thank you.
And I also just that what Supervisor Long is saying, that is a major effort to see that we can be better in being accessible to the services that the county has, but also thinking about all the great partnerships we have with our nonprofits. And I know, I think in the Fillmore-Piru area, there's a strong group of students that get out there and help to educate their fellow citizens about eating right, and working with the stores there to make sure that they, what are healthy foods. I know Westminster Free Clinic also does that, looking at potentially going towards Oxnard, but just ways to use the citizens that are already out there to help engage others to learn and find out about the services that we have. So we have some really good partnerships, and I know you're very involved in those too.
Michael?
Oh, thank you. Well, first, just to congratulate you, Dr. Levin, and the whole public health team who put this together. I was reviewing this document, this community health needs, this amazing amount of information. And the key now is, Supervisor Long said, is to get the word out about it. I imagine you've shared a bit of this with the Civic Alliance for their report coming up. Yeah, I'm sure they relied a lot on this. Also, near the end, you have an executive summary that has the 15 key steps. My thought is maybe you could turn that into 4 or 5 slides that you could send to the board, and so that they could include that in their community presentations, and any other county folks who want to help in the effort to get the word out. And then the last thing is, I was wondering, the question for Dr. Levin, sort of the ability to share information with the community about evolving healthcare clinical treatment improvements. It's kind of like technology. Healthcare is changing and improving all the time so rapidly. And I look at healthcare screening, for example, for lung cancer. There's been huge advances. And forgive a layperson, my understanding is the clinical detection now using MRI and CTs is much better than it used to be. Used with old X-rays, they couldn't tell it until it was late stage. We have a great public and private health system here in the county, but educating the patients in the community about the availability of these new breakthroughs in healthcare, is that something we could also help share with the community and
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that. There are new developments every day. As of about 3 days ago, urologists are saying that we indeed should use a certain blood test for prostate cancer called the PSA. For years, it was on the questionable list. So these things are changing very rapidly.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, this is receive and file. We need a motion. We got a second. Let's vote. And that's approved. Thank you. Our next item is item 32. This is approval of the authorization for the General Service Agent Director to sign a solar power energy service agreement and associated solar facility operating agreement to purchase energy, and so forth and so forth. David?
Good afternoon, Chair Zaragoza, Supervisors Parks, Long, and Bennett, Mr. Powers. While my PowerPoint's coming up, for the record, I'm Dave Sasek, the Director of the General Services Agency, and I have a short presentation, and I would like to gain your approval to enter into 2 agreements with Ventura Solar, LLC. These agreements will ultimately result in the development of a 3-megawatt solar power generating facility outside of Fillmore, and the county having a fixed rate for purchasing the power generated there for at least 25 years. Present in the boardroom today are William Pham, the CEO of Ventura Solar, Chad Chablazi, the Director of Project Development for Ventura Solar. Additionally, we have Leslie Klinchuk from Chevron, the Environmental Project Manager for the site, and also Juliet Don, the Director of Public Affairs for Chevron, in the room today. In 2011, your board created a goal for the county to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 15% by 2020, based on a 2005 baseline. The project I will be discussing today is an innovative approach which will give the opportunity for the county to make use of an SCE rate structure that allows us to use offsite renewable energy to offset power at existing county accounts, and will contribute approximately 4.5% towards your board's reduction goal with no capital cost to the county. So before I talk about the project, I just want to give you a quick overview of the rate structure that's going to allow us to do this. This is the Renewable Energy Self-Generation Bill Credit Transfer Rate Schedule. It's a mouthful. What it does is allows local governments to generate renewable energy from one generating account for bill credits that are applied to benefiting accounts. It's kind of like a renewable energy bank account and is designed to allow local governments to make use of the Southern Cal distribution system to generate power at one location and offset the utility consumption at others. The benefiting accounts need to be within the county boundaries and be on a time of use schedule from SCE. Additionally, the generating facility must be owned, operated, or on property under the control of the county. It is this final point that is critical in enabling us to propose this project as detailed in the board letter. Should SCE not approve our request for this rate structure, the county has the right to terminate these agreements without penalty. That's one of the unfinished pieces of business we have going forward. So there's two agreements that we need to have with Ventura Solar to allow this project to move forward and apply for the RES-BCT program. The first is a solar facility operating agreement with Ventura Solar, who's leased the property from Chevron. In this agreement, the county must agree to operate and maintain the solar generation facility, including a small public visitor area that will provide information on the project, the history, and the site. This agreement lays the groundwork for us to enter into the second agreement, which is the Energy Services Agreement. The ESA agreement is between us and Ventura Solar, where they will install, own, operate, and maintain the solar generation facility on our behalf. The system owner, Ventura Solar, is required to build the system, hire and pay for a management company, and operate and maintain the solar generation facility on a day-to-day basis, and also design and build the visitor area on behalf of the county. So this slide contains some of the details relating to the project and the potential benefits that the county will receive should we proceed with this agreement. We estimate that in the first year, the county will save approximately $72,000 in the utility bill. It's difficult to estimate the long-term savings to the county due to unknowns related to Southern Cal Edison's rate structures and fees. We did make an estimate of those savings, assuming a 2% energy inflation rate. The savings we're projecting are between $3.9 and $5.4 million over the 25-year life of this project. And that range is based on the possibility that SCE is going to gain approval for a proposed shift in the peak billing hours to later in the afternoon. And what that does, that affects the values of the credits that we would receive back for the solar generation going forward. All right, so.
Supervisor?
Did I go on the wrong slide? Okay.
Can I ask a question?
The slide didn't go forward. This is the slide I was talking to. Yes, ma'am.
The slide before, the visitors area,
Yes.
county will be operating, but who is funding that part?
There's a provision in the contract where we will get $1,000 a year cash back from them for any maintenance costs associated with that.
And then along with that, a visitor area, there's 2 charging stations?
Yes.
Okay, just want to make sure people knew. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and I'll show a schematic of those charging stations in just a moment.
Okay.
So my slide didn't advance. This was a slide I was talking to where you can see the various benefits. I apologize for that. All right, so the project is located at 67 East Telegraph Road, just outside of Fillmore. I'm going to provide more detail on the project site in a moment. ESA has a minimum commitment of 7 years with initial term of 25 years with the option of extending in 5-year increments beyond that. There's an early termination fee should the county decide to terminate the agreement prior to the end of the 25-year term. This is a declining fee, and it's calculated based on projected cash flows, less expenses, and a 6% internal rate of return. The early termination fee at the end of year 7 is $2 million, and it declines to $67,000 in year 25. We don't see any reason why the county would execute this, would need to do this, because we're getting the power cheaper, and so this is essentially an opportunity. You know, the contractor is putting forward the capital to put this forward, so they need some protections in place. So here's a photo of the site that was taken in 1941 when it was Fillmore Works. The site was designated as an EPA Superfund site, and Chevron conducted cleanup of the site, including surface soils, and received a ready for reuse determination from the EPA on October 28, 2016. Right now, they are continuing active groundwater cleanup in one site, and it's petroleum, and they're monitoring another location. Neither of these ongoing operations affects the project.
David,
Yes, sir.
do we, the county, is there any liability for the county?
We do not. The way the agreement is structured, we are protected from all liability. We work closely with county council to make sure that was in place.
Okay, so we're not, because it's a Superfund,
Right,
site.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the agreements has structure protect the county from that.
Good, okay.
So the ready for reuse determination clears the way for the site to be used for all but 4 prohibited uses. Those are residents, which includes a mobile home, factory-built housing, or constructed or installed housing on the site, a hospital for human use, public or private schools for students under 18, or a daycare center for children. So clearly a solar generating facility doesn't meet that criteria. Here's what the site looks like right now. So you can see that a lot of work has been done, a lot of prep work to move this thing forward. This shows a depiction of the proposed layout of the solar generating facility. The welcome area is going to be down in the bottom section, closer to the road there. As I mentioned, this is the proposed layout for the visitor area. In the board letter, we mentioned that the CUP, as originally submitted, did not envision this particular part of the project. So Ventura Solar is going to be submitting a request to amend the planning documents in order to allow this visitor center to be constructed. The viability of the project rests upon this being constructed and SCE approving the RES-BCT rate schedule for the meter that will belong to the county on this site. We have had initial meetings and discussions with the representatives from SCE, and they appear to be supportive of this approach as we go forward.
Supervisor.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Why the visitor center? Can you let people know why we're doing a visitor center?
Right. Well, we have to, as I mentioned, we have to have a meter on the site that belongs to the county in order to have an interest on the property. That's one of the provisions in order to have this rate structure. So the visitor center or the visitors area, we need to make sure we don't say visitor center, right, County Council? The visitor area and the 2 generating the 2 EV chargers for cars. The county owns that meter, and that'll be actually the meter will be spinning backwards. But in the event that there's any fees there associated with that meter, the county would pay for them. But because we'll be generating the power, it's just going to offset how much we push back into the grid. But the rate structure requires that we own the meter and we have an interest in that property, and that's how we're going to meet that requirement.
So is APCD going to install that? We're working with APCD for that meter?
We're working with Southern Cal Edison for that meter
okay.
right now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so here's a list of the current solar systems that are being operated by the county. As you can see, this system has the potential to nearly double the amount of solar power that we're generating across the board. And if we're able to move forward with this and come into production, approximately 31% of all the power being used by GSA managed facilities is going to be solar generated. So that has a big impact on us. We also have a few smaller projects planned, but as you can see, nothing of this size and scope moving forward. Looking countywide, these are the other facilities that exist in the county. Again, as you can see that this single site of 3 megawatts would be the largest single solar site in the county. Oxnard Union High has more net capacity than that, but it's spread across a number of different schools. Here's a list or a few pictures of projects that were successfully completed by Ventura Power/Synergy. Our energy manager contacted owners of a number of different projects that were completed by this team and received nothing but positive feedback. And this is really a small sample. I think they've got across the state of California alone somewhere on the upward of 50 to 55 projects completed. So these guys are very well experienced and well versed in this. Okay, so as I mentioned in the beginning, this is an innovative approach to trying to move forward towards your board's goals of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. It required a lot of work for a lot of people on staff. I'm up here representing a huge team of folks, and there's a couple I want to recognize before we go forward. Mike Duncan, who's our energy manager, he's been on the team about a year. When he came on team, he said, hey, I want to come work for you as long as you're serious about doing stuff and making a difference and doing good things with energy and the environment. I told him we were. 3 months later, we started discussing this project, and so here we are. He took a whole lot of hours trying to pull this thing together. Paul Young, who's my chief deputy director, was also instrumental in doing this. And then, as I mentioned, County Council Robert Ariana and Michael Walker were really, really instrumental in pulling these two creative, groundbreaking set of agreements together to get us here in front of your board. Finally, we have Jay Dobrowolski, and I know I said his name wrong, and Chris Stevens from RMA, who helped us really understand what was in the CUP, what the CEQA documents were, and how we could move this project forward. So without any of those folks, we wouldn't be standing here today. So in closing, I request that your board approve the 3 recommendations contained in the board letter. And as always, I'm available to answer any additional questions you may have.
Supervisor Long.
Yep. Okay. Well, I really appreciate this. I know there's other things going on at that site. Thank you for Chevron being here in case there was any questions. I know we are trying to remove this site from being considered or labeled a Superfund. Thank you. And it's really important. I appreciate the city of Fillmore also agreeing to help in making sure that Superfund is removed. I know a letter has come from my office. I think this is meeting the needs of the city of Fillmore also. They were very much against buildings and so forth. In this, at least, their view is not diminished. There was a discussion, and the reason why I brought up the visitor area is the fact that there is a hillside that is beautiful and could perhaps be a hiking trail of some sort that would be free. And so I wanted to make sure we would discuss that because I know there's a lot of hikers and active people here, that might be something else maybe that we look into. I don't know the cost associated, but utilizing that area so that the community is not locked from that area, but that it could actually walk in and use it as well.
Supervisor Parks.
Sounds like an Eagle Scout project in the making there.
Yeah.
The question I have is regarding greenhouse gas emissions. Have you calculated what kind of savings that would be?
Yeah, we did, and I think the number was it was either 1,600 or 1,800 tons per year. It was in that range. Which was it, 1,800? It was 1,800 tons per year.
That's remarkable.
Yeah.
Well, really good effort. I look forward to seeing this move forward. No other questions? I'll be glad to make the motion.
I think Mike, no. Okay, so you would motion?
Just going to say great job to everyone on the team.
Thank you, David.
All right, thank you.
Correspondence agenda?
Okay, correspondence agenda,
And I
number
just
37.
note this is regarding the Amgen, almost 10% of their workforce moving to Florida, I believe it was, and just seeing that some of the analysis is the lack of affordable housing and the ability to attract folks that could live here and work there. So
They
that's
have,
something that I think that
500,
we're all very focused on, almost 500.
Almost 5, yeah. Thank you. Okay, let's vote. And that's approved, and now we're going to go to closed session. Any announcements, Leroy?
There will be no announcements.
So we'll adjourn from closed session. Thank you.